Hello, hello, hello. Sorry. Test, test. All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the special city council meeting of the Antioch City Council, Wednesday, May the 28th, 2025. It's now 6:30 p.m. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Wilson, Councilmember Torres Walker, Councilmember Freitas,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Rocha,
Here.
Mayor Bernal.
Here.
I will note for the record that Councilmember Wilson and Councilmember Torres Walker are absent at 6:30 p.m.
Thank you. Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? All right, excellent. So this is a budget study session. We have two items on the agenda tonight. The first one is the fiscal year 25 to 27 budget development for the city manager. This has been continued from the May 13th, 2025 council special budget study session. So I will turn this over to our city manager, Bessie Scott.
Thank you so much, Mayor and City Council. I'm happy to bookend these council-requested, director-led department budget presentations with the city manager's budget review. To recap, we started these budget sessions on March 4th and had the following presentations. Public Safety and Community Resources was on March 4th. Antioch Police Department was on March 19th. Public Works was on April 1st. Parks and Recreation was on April 8th. The City Attorney and Human Resources was on April 10th. Council, City Clerk, Finance and Treasurer, Non-Departmental and Information Services was on April 15th. Community Development, to include planning, building inspections, code enforcement, and administration was on April 22nd. Economic Development was also on April 22nd. And the City of Antioch's overall budget presentation was last week on May 20th. This council and the public saw many groups within our community come out to this chamber to provide and give public comment on items that are important to them. What we see is an engaged community, and as public servants, the city and our staff can be proud of the high level of civic engagement on display. Two, I want to thank Director Johnson and her team in Public Safety and Community Resources. That would be Julie, Terry House, and Montserrat Cabral. I want to thank Chief Vigil, Captain Bittner, and April Perry, and the Antioch Police Department. I want to thank Director Bunting and Deputy Director Zepeda, Lori Maderos, and Julie Veray in Public Works. And I also want to thank Assistant City Manager Helfenberger and Interim Director Wright and their team at Parks and Recreation, Jalen Valenzuela, Emily Reinhardt, Bree Pierce, and June Gandia, I probably said that wrong, as well as our City Clerk, Melissa Rhodes, and our Assistant City Clerk, Christina Garcia. I want to thank Director Barton and Jennifer Wilson in the back in Information Services, as well as Brett Sweet and Gabby Seltzer for their two economic development presentations. I want to thank our planning manager, Zoe Meredith, and her team in community development, including Hillary Brown, Craig Andrews, and Kurt Michael for their comprehensive presentation of their budget as well. And last but not least, I want to give honor and recognition to the human calculator and all-around badass herself, Dawn Merchant. Her tenacity and expertise in handling this challenging biennial budget has been a feat, and she has been a joy to work with and for. I really work for her. I may have forgotten some folks, and what's clear is that our teams are so dedicated, hardworking, and they care about this community. So in going over my budget, I first want to start with my organizational chart, and Chief Hill usually does this for me, but yes. So I'm going to go over my organizational chart and my department purpose. So the city manager serves as the administrative head of the city government under the direction of you all, and I'm responsible for carrying out the policies and directives of the city council. That includes fiscal planning, intergovernmental relations, communications, both internal, external, and with community at large. And I advise you all in terms of your policy and policy decisions. Two, it's overseeing operations to include all departments. For 2025 to 2027, our objectives in my office include fiscal responsibility, transparency, and innovation. Under fiscal responsibility, I really want to work with our departments on efficacy to promote operational efficiency across the city, as well as continuity. So streamlining service delivery across departments and succession planning. For transparency, it includes public involvement, visibility, and delivery. So delivering municipal services in the city under the city's values and in line with our city values. Participation and transparency across the city for visibility and citizen engagement and customer service delivery. For innovation, we want to work on partnerships which foster regional collaboration, like Delta 6, and using data to make more informed decisions going forward. Our organizational chart includes myself, as well as Susan Vasquez, who will be retiring on June 12th, Brad Helfenberger as our Assistant City Manager, and Jaden Baird, our Public Information Officer. I think he's been here for about 2 months now with a total of 4 full-time employees. All right, so our summary, my budget summary, I'm very expensive, it turns out. So our revised budget for 2024 to 2025 seems to have doubled, and I will explain that as we go. Most of this budget is personnel across all years. Services and supplies includes our contracts, which I'll explain later what those are. For our total expenditure line here on the page. Internal services has been changed, Councilmember Freitas, that's our transfer out across departments. Is that acceptable to you, that nomenclature? Okay. He likes it, he doesn't like it, I don't know. Any questions on this page?
Do you want specific questions now?
Yes. I'm gonna explain some of this later, so you might wanna wait.
Go ahead.
All right. So the budget breakdown is as follows. Most of it is personnel, and then about a third of it is the services and supplies. All right, so the next budget summary includes what those are. So the first one is our offices, supplies, postage, and copier and long distance. The next one is contract services, where you'll see the bulk of the increase for my budget this fiscal year. Business expenses, it includes equipment, our plant services, things like that. Special projects, it includes the employee appreciation, furniture, and different events. Conferences and dues include city management associations and all the things that we go to make sure that we're regionally sound and have great business practices. And then the Police Oversight Commission, it went from 15,000 to 75,000. There was a decision made at some point before I got here that the APOC training budget would come over to the city manager's budget for independence from the Antioch Police Department. So that's some of that increase as well. All right.
Excuse me, quick question. Are we still in agreement with, I'm asking council, still in agreement with having that over in the city manager's budget as opposed to in the PD budget? Because my comment not knowing that it was transferred over was why isn't that in the PD, in the police department budget? So.
I think it's for independence from PD, so, yeah, it shouldn't be in their budget.
Okay.
It's a conflict of interest.
Okay,
And
thank you.
In some respects, I mean, it's kind of a city clerk as well, because
Yeah.
the city clerk is really responsible for all boards.
Oh,
and
put your
commissions.
microphone on, sir.
Yeah. City clerk is responsible for all boards and commissions, and so this is kind of a peculiar,
Yeah.
group.
I mean, technically, it could sit in city clerk's budget, but I would have to call her every 5 seconds for approval, so, which is fine.
I think it's fine in your budget.
Okay.
Since you're the staff to the APOC, correct?
Yes.
All right.
All right.
On that point, are you going to remain staff to the APOC?
Well, technically, it's staffed under the city attorney. He's not here to defend himself.
Right.
So it should have been city attorney, but I help because it's my expertise. The main point is the city attorney's office, and then I second, even though we, I guess, matrix manage together the commission.
Was it not officially transferred to your department? I thought that it was in the city attorney's and it transferred.
didn't
You
transfer.
you just assumed responsibility for it?
Yes, I saw some gaps.
Okay.
All right.
I mean, well, considering
Yeah.
that that's an area of, obviously of strength for you, should there be action to have it become
I mean, it's
Your
up to you all.
responsibility.
It's already there.
Yeah, I mean, and it's double supported because the chief
Oh,
also
I misunderstood. I
supports
thought
it.
it said it was a city city
Yeah.
attorney.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's not, it's in the city attorney's, who staffs it, so. But the chief and I are kinda
That's
working
why I asked,
together.
that's why I asked the question.
Yeah, and the chief does actually a lot of the lift, so.
On the question, I don't mind the city attorney still being the designated staff simply because of the legal questions and the fact that, we have the settlement agreement.
Sure. Makes sense.
Whatever the,
Okay, all right, so for contracts, which is the bulk of the increase for this fiscal year, not the next 2 years, we have the downtown security contract under the city manager budget. It has increased because we needed some more security, so we paid extra for certain areas. And then we have the strategic planning with Tracy Miller. We have grants and legislative advocacy for Townsend, operational assessment for the next 3 years. So this year, this last 6 months, it has been, Public Works has gone first, and then Human Resources will go next, as well as IS. And then we move on next year to, I think, Community Development, Economic Development, and another department. And then, so we just kind of do a little at a time in terms of that contract. The next is the municipal customer service delivery. So David Mensa has a contract this year to enhance our customer service. One of the things in the municipal code and in my job description is to look at customer service in terms of equity and cultural responsiveness. So David Mensa was chosen for that. We're just waiting for the budget to end, encumber that money, and we'll go do a customer service survey across all departments. Succession planning consultant this year, as well as executive coaching and team building. So we have executive coaches across the different departments. And then executive recruitment, so Bob Hall and Associates. And we have Parks and Recreation, and we also have City Community Development and City Attorney, Assistant City Attorney out right now. So you'll see them posted and live on our LinkedIn as of, I believe, today. Yep. Okay, and then we're gonna do that fee study that Director Merchant discussed on, was it yesterday? All the days blur. So that is the total and why there's the biggest bulk of increases, because obviously there was some need to get into operational fidelity as soon as I got here. And you asked me to look into things, and we have done that.
question. So with regards to the TEM contract,
Yes.
we just approved a 58% increase in her contract, which brought her from 75,000 to 113,000. So is there going to be carryover?
There isn't carryover.
There is
It's
or is
spent.
not?
There is not. So she'll be coming back after June, which is why you see the next biennium starts on July 1st.
And what is she going to continue doing?
Helping with priority setting.
For the council,
Yes,
you?
for the council.
Okay. And then under the operational assessment, can you just broaden and explain to that a little bit? I mean, what is the specific goal that's needy, that's trying to be achieved?
Yeah, to look at operational gaps in terms of service delivery and cross-service department delivery. So I can send you all the scope of work.
All right.
All right.
So will there be a report out
Yes.
on, like you were saying, we're gonna be doing some this year, some next year, some the following year, so.
So
will-
each department gets a report.
Okay, and
yeah.
then will you bring that back to the council?
Absolutely.
Okay. Are you
And
gonna
the
bring,
consultant will come herself to deliver it.
so will you bring it department by department or organizationally?
Yes, department by department.
When you do, are these recommendations, what does it cover? Does it cover staffing,
Yeah, it covers
and
staffing.
training? I mean, what does it
Yes,
cover?
streamlining, service delivery, customer service, training, staffing. Mostly training and staffing needs, and also she understands our fiscal situation. So what can we do in terms of low-hanging fruit to streamline with what we have?
I had one question about the downtown security.
Yeah.
When it says downtown, what are we talking about, like Second Street,
Yes.
all the way out to,
there are
I mean, we were
specific-
talking last night
yeah,
about, we
and
were talking about
there's
the marina
specific-
last night, like, does the marina encompass
Yes.
downtown? I was just curious.
And we're looking to. there's only 8 areas.
Yeah, I just wanted to, when it says downtown security, I'm just curious to what that looks like, what's the area? Oh, your microphone.
Yes, primarily, the security contract covers the parking lots that are in downtown. The increase that's noted here, we're also looking into adding additional security for the Amtrak station.
Okay. And what about the marina?
Yes, that is one of
Oh,
the
that is
parking
one
lots
of
that's
the-
included, yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Is the marina included now?
Yes.
It's-
Okay.
It's not a success.
Yeah.
I get complaints, I've experienced it several times. It is a big problem.
I can share that feedback with the company. There's 9 parking lots total, so the marina is one, and it is, you know, a bit separated from the rest of downtown, so we can ask them to put more emphasis there.
I would say, as Councilman Freitas just stated, and again, we talked about this last night, to me, that would be a priority, because of the number of issues.
To me,
You
it
get-
is the
you get
priority. It is a
messages.
long-term problem, has not gone away,
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that I would like to.
has
meet with
not
them
improved, by the way.
And have the chief with me, so that we can actually look at the 9 areas and see if that's your highest level of need for them, that's what you continue to want them to do.
Well,
So we will,
Well, one thing, this guy, I know I saw in the communications regarding the fencing security, the monitoring of the parking lot, has that been addressed?
it has not been addressed.
That's just something I think needs to be looked into, as far
Okay.
as securing that lot and how it's
We
secured.
talked about it in our leadership team this morning. Yeah,
I also think, you know, having, you know, permits, you know, designated parking is a good thing, not a bad thing.
Mayor, City Council. You're correct, and we are talking about things. We talked about the permitting process, possibly having something for people that were in the marina, that they would have the ability to park in either area and not be charged for it. Possibility of maybe gating it in a similar way that the boat launch is taking up. There's some complications with that, of course, you know, just the geometry and trying to fit things in there. Trying to figure out the best way to make it better. We have done work. You know, you notice that there are speed bumps out there now. They were having a lot of sideshows and things going out there in the past. It's been curbed slightly, but it still does come and go. So we're working with the PD. We'll continue to try to drum up some ideas on the public works side of how we can do this and work with both the restaurant as well as the tenants within the marina.
And particularly in the months of June, July, August, September, those are some of the worst months out
Well,
there.
you know, because school's getting out.
Well,
so,
school's
yeah.
out, people are going to the restaurants because they have outdoor dining and things of that sort, and when you sometimes can't get out, you know, it's a problem.
Yeah, understood. Some of these solutions that I'm talking about may not solve the problem.
No, no,
The
but
gates
it-
are open as well. Presence is important, whether it's security, the police department, typically, and people in general. The more people we get out there, oftentimes, it makes the crowds go someplace else. But we continue to look at it, heard what we talked about last night. We did discuss it. I discussed it with the folks at Public Works and then the executive team today also, so it's something we're aware of.
I wanted to ask a couple more questions on the downtown security. So the extra $62,000 that was spent in this fiscal year, what was that specifically for? And then my next question is gonna be, why is it going if the security maybe isn't adequate, why is it going down to 100? I know the contract we approved or, renewed was for $100,000, but I'm wondering why, what was 62 for and why we're not doing more?
Right, 62 is an anticipated increase. We anticipate that being pushed forward, and we're hoping that will be sufficient to carry us forward. That part specifically, an anticipated increase for the Amtrak station.
Understood. So does that meet the requirements of Amtrak for having a police officer before and after?
Yes, we're gonna work with the chief on that, and so he already has, people going out, but we need more.
Or the request, I should say, not the
Yes.
requirement?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we bring that back up?
Sure.
Yeah, I guess I'm not following. So this fiscal year, we spent, what is it, 162,000? And next 2 years, we reduced it by 62,000.
So the 162,000 has not been fully expended. We're expending approximately 100,000. So we're requesting the additional 62,000, and we're anticipating pushing that forward into future years.
So why don't we just show what is anticipated 24, 25, and the increase in 25, 26? I don't get it.
I mean, we could make that adjustment. Yeah.
So if we're gonna spend 100 this year, the revised would be 100, and then we'd push the 62 to wherever it needs to be in the next 2 years?
It could be in 25, 26.
Yeah,
Okay.
131.
Yep.
All right.
Or
Yeah.
split between the two
Yeah,
two new
131,
Yes.
fiscal
yeah.
years.
Right.
And
It
it-
doesn't all have to be in the one fiscal year.
And then the other,
This gave us the most flexibility to be able to start in the current fiscal year, and we could push it forward if needed.
and then I also noticed on the contract last night, I didn't ask the question, but the time was going to be from 10 to 4, and then it got changed from 6 to 12, I believe,
I believe it's 5 to midnight.
or 5 to midnight,
And-
but the staff report said 5 to midnight, but the contract had, I think, different hours on it.
I'll look into that.
Okay.
But yeah, the intent is for it to be 5 to midnight.
Yeah, and it seemed like the time it would probably be, maybe like 9 to 3 would be better than 5 to midnight, because, you know, people are out wandering around in those times, but I don't know, you all know what's the most highest need.
Yeah, and
timeframe.
it depends on the Amtrak stops and all that stuff. So
Right.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
different configurations that will work out with the chief.
Yeah, the Amtrak station will be earlier hours.
Right, I was thinking more of like the marina and
Mm.
things like that, where we're hearing complaints, so, okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
All right. Thanks. Any more questions on this slide?
Yeah, so the succession planning, so we're showing 50,000 this year. Do you expect all that to be expended this year, or do you expect it to be encumbered
No,
into
we'll
the next?
encumber it.
Okay,
Mhm.
but 50,000 is enough to
Mhm.
do everything you need to do?
Yep.
And also the fee study, so that 60,000, will that all be spent this year?
That, well, we
Or-
still have to go out to RFP because we were waiting until the city manager budget review.
Mhm.
So if we don't have, for example, right before we get to finalizing the budget, you know, the draft budget for adoption, the fee study and the succession plan, if we don't have the consultants underway, what we'll do is we'll just move the budget from 24, 25, and we'll put it in the 25, 26 column, because we won't have a contract to be able to encumber. So we'll just shift it over a year if, you know, in the next couple of weeks. I mean, we definitely won't have the fee study encumbered, you know, because we have to issue an RFP for at least 30 days. So, you know, most likely, we'll be moving, I'll move that over into 25, 26 for her budget. And then depending on the succession planning, if we don't get that under contract before the budget adoption to encumber, we'll just shift the budget over in the 25, 26.
And is this the AB 1600 fees you're talking about? Is this the development impact fees? that
No,
we're
the
talk-
development impact fees, there's a separate fund that the development impact fees, each fund pays for, and then, you know, we have a Parks and Rec development impact fee, which is a capital type fund that's, and then you know, police, administration, and public works. And then the reports themselves, community development does those reports.
So are we in the process of revising or updating those fees at this point?
Well, the development impact fees themselves, those were adjusted with the master fee, because the ordinance establishing the development impact fee allows for an annual adjustment. And when the study, the DIF study was done, it was recommended to use the ENR, which is what we did last night with the master fee. So that's separate than the park dedication, park and lieu that you were speaking about, so.
Would it be more appropriate to talk further on that in the CIP discussion when we're actually talking about those
Mhm.
fees? Okay, I'll ask questions then, sorry.
So I have a question. So with several of these, we show expenditures in 24, 25 and none in 25, 26. But it sounds like several of these are gonna be carried over.
They're gonna be carried over, yeah.
And so the question I would have is, you know, when we look at it, it looks like there's no funding for those in the next 2 fiscal years, but there actually is. And so it's like Bob Hall and Associates, I can't believe you've spent the whole 175,000 because we haven't had all those
Well, it's
recruitments.
just the starting years where we put it.
So,
it
but
just
the,
depends
on the
on-
final budget, I
Mhm.
assume some of these will,
Yeah, but-
these will
so
be
what has
changed and
contracts?
carry over.
So it depends, if it's on encumbered, because we can take expenditures, just accounting jargon, through, you know, almost the end of August and book that back to the year. So we really have to wait till we close out. And then every fall, what happens is the open purchase orders and then project budgets outstanding, we bring an item to council to reappropriate the encumbered funds and rebudget them into the new year. So any that aren't shifted, like the ones I spoke about that actually have balances that we're not quite sure what the year-end balance is, but it's on a purchase order, that'll remain in the 25, and then we'll bring it in the fall asking to reappropriate those budgets.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. All right, so our recent successes include filling executive positions, executive leadership and professional development with Tracy Miller, emergency hires, thanks so much, to increase citywide capacity, And we have a decrease in attrition and an increase in workplace morale
How are you measuring the increase in workplace morale?
by people not quitting. Because you want to start today, sir.
That's the measurement,
Yeah,
okay.
because you want to fight. We can fight.
That's an interesting metric, okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, yes, Councilmember Wilson.
I'm so sorry, because I just now figured out where we are in this. Could we go back to the previous, I had a quick
certainly.
question. I probably was already answered prior, and I apologize for being late. My day job ran a little bit long. Operational assessments, did you kind of touch base on where we are on that? And I
Yes.
really wanted to hear about that.
Yeah, so it's starting with Public Works. It started in December, so we're going to do Human Resources and Information Services this year.
Okay, and
And the
hopefully
reports will come back to
okay,
you.
reports will come back. Okay,
Yeah.
because I'm really interested in that. Thank you. That was my one question. I really wanted to hear about that.
And reports are gonna come department by department,
Okay,
according to the city manager.
thank you.
All right. So we expanded our encampment task force group to add code enforcement. We have the county sitting on it as well, and Union Pacific and railroads as needed. I'm looking at our deputy director. Enhanced partnerships with stakeholders within the county, legislative advocacy with Townsend Public Affairs, and the strategic restructuring and increased operational fidelity. That's the operational assessment and other things that we're doing.
A quick question on Townsend. Sorry, I missed it when we went through. So they're going from 62.5 this year to 150 and 150 the next 2 years?
Yes, because they started half year.
Got it.
so,
So that's a full year. And then they will be in addition to a grant writer if that's something
Yes.
council approves, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm assuming they're gonna be working,
hand in hand.
And to clarify, as in the staff report, based on the study session last week, we did include a grant writer in the staffing. That was the council consensus. So I just wanted to, I wrote that in the staff report, but just so that's clear that that's in the figures for personnel.
All right, future initiatives include hiring up the public records, the records management person, as well as improving the records management system and the Public Records Act process under the clerk. Thank you so much. Human Resources, the personnel rules are being updated right now by consultant Michelle Fitzer. For Public Information Office, we are doing branding congruency across the agency. So Mayor, you were here when we did the rebranding, but it wasn't pulled through. So making sure that the signatures all have our new branding, making sure that we have letterhead, PowerPoint presentations. So when you see our logo, it's pulled through all of our assets, is what we're doing now. And we're also doing a citywide communications strategic plan that will be presented to you probably within the next month.
in the next month you'll be, okay.
So for Public Works, there's going to be a Click Fix relaunch in Q3 of this year. For Economic Development, the strategic plan is being updated by the current team and will be worked on when that team goes into community development. And for community development, we did launch the general plan RFQ.
I'm gonna go back to the economic development. You're having the update be Q4?
Yes, so they're actually working on it now, but we're going to be moving that department within community development. It's going
Sure.
to take some time, so just being realistic, sir.
I disagree. I think this is,
So don't be realistic.
I think the focus is much needed, and the sooner we have it, the better. I mean, Q4 is the last quarter of the fiscal year, correct?
Mhm.
Yeah, so we're using calendar year here instead of
Are we
fiscal year?
using, is that what
Yeah,
we're using? Are
calendar
we
year.
using fiscal
We're
year?
using calendar year, so fiscal year will be right now, and that's not possible, so.
Well, I'd like to go back and maybe revisit that, because, it is long overdue, and there is a realigning, and I think that we need to be much more aggressive with regards to the economic development, because in my opinion, it's virtually non-existent.
I was just gonna, I don't see city attorney in here. Is that in a different,
Yeah, that's not my,
that's not, okay, that's
Department.
all your, okay. I was looking at HR.
Any,
I'm not doing anything to, doing initiatives on his department because he reports, he's my equal, so, yeah.
anything on information systems that
Yes.
you intend to do next year?
things on information systems. So we're working on a downtown Wi-Fi, getting a new phone system, and other things. So yeah,
Okay.
lots of things going on. All right, and that's it for me. Do you want to go over this off?
Any questions or any further questions? Do we have any public comments on this item?
I don't have any speaker cards.
Okay. No public comments. I'm sorry?
I thought somebody raised their hands.
If there's no other questions, then we can move on to the next item. Thank you very
All
much,
right, thanks so much.
City Manager Scott. So our next item is the presentation of the draft 5-year capital improvement program for 2025 through 2030.
Mayor, I also want to announce that Councilmember Wilson joined us at 6:45 PM.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. My name is Scott Bunting. I'm your Public Works Director, City Engineer. I also oversee community or capital improvements, not community development, but capital improvements.
Excuse me, Scott. I would like, if council agrees, to go, as we go, page by page, so we don't have to circle back after, because it's a pretty long presentation, correct?
Presentation's not too long.
I just had comments along the way, so maybe if that's,
That would be perfectly fine.
That was actually gonna be a question I had. I mean, you have the narrative up front, and then then there's the specific project. So however, what are you planning on doing?
I'm going to walk through the capital improvement program, what we've done, what we're going to do. I'll specify the ones that are general fund funded, ones that are in progress, not in progress. I can go through a number of the projects, and then afterwards, I could take questions, or as we go per slide, I can take questions, whatever the council prefers.
I have questions from pages 1 to 18, so that's a question. Are we dealing with that separately?
Every page. Let's go page by page.
I would like for us to just ask them as we go along, similar to what we did for the city manager.
Sounds great. So first, I need to thank some people. My staff, Lori Medeiros is our admin analyst. Mitchell Loving is my junior engineer. Julie Vire has helped out a lot as a technician down at the maintenance yard, as well as Anna Davis, who also works within our department. I'd also like to thank our deputy director, Carlos Cepeda, for all the help putting this together. So we'll get started here. This is your 5-year capital for for years 2025 to 2030. This is how it works. We started back in a long time ago, but the first presentation was on May 15th. I presented to the Park and Rec Commission. At that point, they review the document. They review the document as it pertains to Park and Rec projects, and they did approve it, recommend to move forward. Back in May 21st, I presented to the Planning Commission with the intent for them to confirm the CIP's consistency with the general plan, which they did on May 21st. Today is May 28th. This is our study session, and then with the idea that the plan will be adopted on the 24th of June.
Mr. Rodney, on that point, with the review of Park and Recreation and Planning Commission, did they provide input or recommendations to the city council? I mean, they reviewed it, but.
There was no recommendations. There was no feedback that came back.
And the planning commission found it consistent with the general plan?
They found it consistent with the general plan and thought that it was an excellent presentation.
Right.
So we'll move forward. Capital improvements program, our primary objectives. We provide professional and technical engineering services to everybody within the city, support to all city departments, and we provide leadership for implementing federal, state, and local programs. So capital improvement projects are funded in many ways. So in this case, what I have showing is for a 2-year budget. If in fact the city decides to make this a 1-year budget, only fiscal year 25-26 will be committed funds towards. Anything after fiscal year 27 will just be for planning purposes only. Like I said, when I was doing this, thought that we're looking at a 2-year budget, but if we decide to go to a 1-year, just so you guys realize what we're doing. So on this, as you can see, there's lots of expenditures that we do. In particular, you look at our roadways. Roadways are making up nearly $35 million worth of work over this year and the past year. Projects we're talking about here are the L Street project. It's a 2-phase project in between the freeway and the marina. Our roadway rehabilitation project, which entails some surface preparation, some curb ramps being installed, and then a surface treatment of a cape seal over designated areas. And then there's also money in there for median island improvements. Also of note is our parks. We're in the middle of working on a number of parks. Contra Loma Estates is nearing completion. Hopefully that'll be pushing completion here within the next couple months. We're also going to get ready to start work on Marquette Park and Jacobson Park. Both of those parks are rather old and haven't seen much improvements for a long time, as well as the bike garden, which will be installed over at near our Antioch Community Center. Lastly, of note on this is the community facilities, work on Nick Rodriguez, as well as a lot of work at Pruitt and the PD. Of note, not all this is funded, but this is where the dollars come from. Do we have any questions on this sheet?
Do we have that sheet in this binder?
Excuse me?
It's in the very back of the report. It's the PowerPoint, yeah.
There.
flip to the back. Go all the way to the last page and then go forward.
Oh, yours isn't.
No, flip it over. Got it. Flip it, I'm telling you the easiest way to get to it.
I flip what over?
Flip the whole pack over.
What?
That's your last page?
Yeah, that's my last page.
Oh.
So that's why I'm not following you, because I don't think I have this in my binder. No. Because I have comments on it. Yeah, I haven't had this.
So that, I apologize. That could make it a little bit more difficult if we were going through the CIP. Sorry, this is just a presentation. There's 15 to 20 slides here. I apologize for you not having that. We'll work our way through. If there's questions come up, please let me know. Sources of funds. Of course, our capital improvement program needs.
I do
yes,
have a
sir.
question. You know what? Are we going to go? My questions are more on the individual pages, so let's just go through this and then we can ask them on the CIP itself.
Sure. I'll try to go through this, trying to hit some of the stuff that's important,
Right.
at least as I see, and then you're more than welcome to focus on any projects or any questions that you might have. Anyway, so funding sources, source of funds, capital improvement fund, special revenues. There is a large amount of unfunded projects. I'll be going through what these source of funds actually mean. But as you can tell, the enterprise funds as well as the special revenue funds are contributing quite a bit for improvements over this year. Sorry about that. And here we go for a little bit more in depth on the funding sources that we have. We do have the Capital Improvements Fund. Some older things up there. Assessment District 2731, or the Lone Diamond Assessment District. The Hillcrest Assessment District, AD 26, as well as the Annexation Funding Agreement. That's part of the Northeast annexation between the City of Antioch and the county when that was annexed into the City of Antioch. Below that, you'll see our enterprise funds. The water fund, sewer fund, those are typical enterprise funds. The water systems improvement fund, there is also there's a sewer systems improvement fund. There is also a water system improvement fund. There's no money budgeted in the CIP. That's not why it's listed, why it's not listed. But those funds are generated due to connection fees for capacities, for build out of our facility, due to increase in service and the need for additional capacity.
Excuse me, is the Marina Fund an enterprise fund as well?
The marina is an enterprise fund.
So should that be listed in here as a fund?
It all depends on if there's projects and there's funding. I can tell you there's no funding available in the marina fund for any projects, so I'm not sure once we get through the presentation can address if there's any unfunded projects at the marina.
Yeah, so there were some projects in there, and so I didn't know if we listed, even though there isn't money to pay for it, is it still to be listed or?
So within the document, the actual CIP, various funding sources are listed. Some may not be utilized currently. This was kind of pinpointed to what's being utilized within this CIP. And if there is marina funds, and if there happens to be something in there we missed out, we can definitely add that in. But the idea of what we're kind of running through now would be the funds that are utilized at this time in the front of the CIP. There's a number of other funds that we just might not be utilizing at this time.
Okay.
Ms. Fund, on the enterprise fund, we do have the sewer fund, then we have the sewer system improvement fund. And in the document, we have the water fund, we have the water fund, or water improvement fund. So how is the money collected for the sewer system and the water system fund?
So the water system improvement fund could be thought of as a capital fund within the sewer, within sewer. These are connection fees that are paid for.
The connection fee is the revenue source.
The connection fee is a revenue source. Also for the water system improvement fund, you're going to get the connection fees also for the fees that we're going for our capacity at Randall Bold. Now we're going to our desal plant. But these are connection fees based on capacity.
And primarily new home construction, new businesses? That
Yes.
kind of thing? Okay. Thank you.
So next, grants. We're small but mighty. We do have a number of these, I'll tell you. So your Highway Safety Improvement Funds, that's a grant that we have. We have two grants for this. One's about a $2.5 million upgrade to 69 traffic signals within the city. And then another $800,000 grant for, I believe it's 3 pedestrian hawk signals at various locations within the city. The OBAG, or Bay Area grant, we have the second, say OBAG 2 is an L Street, is being used for the L Street project, the first phase. There's about a $1.4 million grant out of that fund. For the OBAG 3, we have a $2.5 million grant for a countywide smart signals project, where it's just better communication, signals do work better. Going down to the Prop 68 REC grant, that's currently being utilized at Contra Loma Estates. The California Natural Resource Agency is a $2.2 million grant that will be utilized at Nick Rodriguez. And we go down to Safe Streets for All. That's where the city has partnered up with CCTA. This includes a $13 million grant for the second phase of L Street, as well as a $4 million grant associated with the bike garden over at ACC. Special revenues funds, we brought this up a little bit. First, that we might all be aware of is the ARPA funds, the American Rescue Plan Act. These were emergency relief and recovery funds to mitigate for COVID, basically designed typically for public health, economic impacts, ease economic impacts and public service. The Delta Fair Property Fund, again, we talked recently, they're parks that are older. These are ones, 1980 is the line for those. Development impact fees, I heard that brought up. We'll probably talk a little bit more about that. But those are one-time charges to developers for cost of infrastructure. And it's basically to accommodate for new growth and to allow funds to come to the city to keep expanding. Gas tax is roadway money typically. It also helps with our streets department, Measure J, along the same lines, a little bit more restrictions to the Measure J money.
Scott, are there RMRA funds as well?
Yes, sir.
All right. And then do you have any information, or will you have any information on kind of trends? Like, I know gas tax is going down, and so do you have information on kind of what's happening?
I don't have anything in particular of the same thing, that things are going down slightly, but I don't know exactly how much.
Okay.
We regularly get state estimates from California City Finance, and actually the estimates for the next 2 years, gas tax is actually slightly increasing. I know there is anticipation as EV becomes more prominent that could decline, but you've also seen the rising gas prices, so I think we're kind of making up in that area. And the same with the RMRA, the Road Maintenance Rehabilitation Act, which is on one of the slides here. Those funds are increasing slightly as well. I mean, not huge swings, but we're definitely not at this point losing money in those sources.
With regards to the grants, you have listed 5. Do we anticipate those continuing in the foreseeable future? Any movement to get rid of them?
The grants themselves?
The grants, the Highway Safety Improvement Program, One Bay Area Grant, I mean,
We continue to work through them. You know, they are processing, we are working through them with the projects. We do continue to look for grant opportunities. None of these are reoccurring. There are always things that you need to apply again for. Quite often with these types of grants is a good grant proposal, work being done, tends to help you get the next round, because most of these agencies, whether it's CCTA or Caltrans, they're trying to process. They want to spend the money also. So if we can be good stewards of public funds and move these projects along, it does help us in the future. So more within the special revenue funds, the NPDES, National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System. This is something that we use within our creeks, storm channels. It also funds a portion of our clean water program, as well as trash capture devices that we have within catch basins throughout the city.
yeah, stop. This is way overdue. If the city of Antioch were in the San Francisco Regional Water Quality Control Board, there would probably have been enforcement action taken against the city for not increasing funding for NPDES, because what this says is that our fee has not changed in about 20, 25 years, which means that its buying power is less and less and less, which means there are really less activities happening under the permit. So I would strongly urge that we take a look at this and consider increasing it.
Yes, sir. We can definitely look into that. Also, we have park and lieu funds. Those are funds from developers for us to utilize in our parks. The RMRA that the mayor was speaking of, road maintenance and rehabilitation account, again, dollars that are used towards roadway maintenance. Rule 20A is an undergrounding fund. We have about $1 million in there. And then finally, there's a traffic signal fund, which is also developers' funds for off-site traffic signal improvements. Okay, so we'll jump into some projects that we've completed over the last year. So here's a list of a number of things. There was work done at Pruitt. We worked around the fence. This is the metal fence around the facility. Replaced a gate or two, a number of panels, got rid of most of the rust that was on there, painted it, made it a more secure facility. You'll see Contra Loma Estates. This is also on this plan. That it's listed as a complete project. We expect it to happen within the next couple months. So that's why you see it here.
Excuse me, realistically, we're expecting a couple months? Is that
Realistically,
a real timeline?
realistically, I'm looking at a couple months.
Okay,
I'll confirm. I'll be able to confirm that a little later on this week.
all right.
The neighborhood traffic calming project. We did complete one of the phases recently. It was 5 of the traffic speed bumps, as well as 1 raised crosswalk that was actually constructed. A failing sound wall over on Hillcrest was
Real quickly
replaced.
on traffic calming, so did we spend $400,000 on traffic calming this year?
There was some of this money that's going to be rolled over.
Okay, because that's probably the biggest email, or most emails I get is about traffic calming, and I know the demand outpaces our ability to install them, but it seems like this is something we're definitely going to want to look at, how this program operates and rolls out, over the next couple, 3 years.
Completely understand. So in this case, we did bid out a project with the limited budget that we had. We have received the bids. There is some money left in there. We'll be negotiating or having conversations with the contractor. If we can roll in a few more facilities under this contract, we will. Try to get in as much as we can when we have the ability to.
I'm just curious, how much does it cost roughly to do, the hump, the bump, whatever?
I think they're 50.
50,000?
Yeah.
Okay.
Have to take a look. The crosswalks can get more expensive.
Each one's 50,000?
I'd have to take a look, but I mean, if I'm talking, I'm getting 5 in there. I can take a look at the prices. I know that they are rather expensive. I could be getting confused with the crosswalk that we have out here, but I can definitely pull up our bids. This project was recently bid, and if I'm misspeaking, I apologize.
And then there's 2 or 3 larger calming, James Donlan, I think Sycamore's another one. So are those different from the $400,000 here?
Yes.
Okay.
Those are different. They're showing up later in this presentation within the CIP. Those were specific streets, not include. This would be your neighborhood traffic calming. This is somebody contacting us, wanting to typically have speed bumps put in. There's a process for us to go through that's what this project is for. The other projects are specific for streets.
As the mayor said, you know, I get a lot of requests for this too, the neighborhood calming. Can we see a list of, you know, I know there's a backlog, but it'd be helpful to know what's on the list.
Yes.
I mean, just so that if somebody calls, we can say, yes, it's on the list, and based on funding, we'll get to it, but it would be helpful for us to know what it is.
Sure.
Well, I think along those lines, sometimes, it seems like we're all getting those calls or emails. I think sometimes residents believe that they've completed whatever process to start. And so it'd be nice to know, like, if what neighborhoods, what streets have completed the paperwork, the process, to bring it to the next phase for I guess a street survey or whatever it's called to do the evaluation. But I think some people are under the belief that we've done everything we're supposed to do and we're still waiting. So it would be nice to know which projects or which neighborhoods have actually moved forward. And if some neighborhoods haven't done what they're supposed to do in terms of the application or whatever steps are necessary, then we would have some good information to give them. Because I think sometimes people assume we're waiting for something to happen, but maybe they haven't ever taken care of what they needed to get the ball started.
And on that point, on the communication plan, for those particularly who have done all the paperwork and everything's just waiting for funding, it would be good for us maybe on an annual basis to communicate to some of the people who are in the queue and saying, yes, we know you've done all your work, you're in the queue, and it just comes down to, you know, budgetary considerations. I mean, just communicating, because sometimes they're not very nice. They get very angry that they've done all the paperwork and it's approved and it's not done. And we just need to know.
Understand. We get the phone calls too, and I can put a list together. I can work with the city manager, and we can see where we're at. The way this works for us is it is on a first come, first served basis, and that as we work through, we're able to get them out. Our list goes back a number of years, and we'll make that available. And currently, I believe we're doing a much better job of trying to communicate with the residents. Because there is a number of steps, and as you'll see when you get this, it's a spreadsheet, and there's a number of steps that have to happen, and there's fatal flaws at many steps. So the idea is to now to make sure that when somebody does provide us with a request, as we're going through, there is communication. There's better communication now than there was, where we initially reach out and tell them we're doing something, and then as we're going through the process, communicate back. Hey, we've got all your ballots, but your ballots don't support. Or we've looked at your street and you live on a 35-mile-an-hour street and that excludes you from speed bumps. So I understand. We will do our best to try to be more interactive with the citizens and provide a list. Honestly, there's a lot of these things that I think whether there's miscommunication on somebody's part, that these things may have got dropped or they didn't make the right connection. I would love for us to be able to work that thing through, because these people, when the question is, we've been waiting for a long time, there probably is an issue. That something either happened to the application or it didn't go through and they just weren't contacted. But I'll go ahead and work with the city manager and get you guys something on that.
Yeah, thank you. And then I guess where they haven't installed, I think they work really well, so we just don't have enough of them. And I guess the other point is, for every dollar we spend on a speed table, we don't spend it rehabilitating a street. So that's that's precious dollars that we're spending on a lot of traffic calming and speed tables that is not rehabilitating streets. So I want to say that.
Okay, so also what you see on this, like I said, we have our curb gutter sidewalk repair program. It's an annual program that we do. This goes along with the city's 50-50 program that you might be aware of, street trees that were planted, that if a tree had damaged the concrete and it was planted in our right-of-way by the developer, It might entitle the citizen to some relief in terms of the concrete work that was done, as well as this contractor helps with any repairs that we might do as a city to a water or sewer line within the sidewalk that might need some repairs. The last 5 that you're going to see on there are all out of the water treatment plant. So I know that out of the water treatment plant, we've got our desal project going, but we're also able to get some work done out there. Working with staff and a lot of help from Marcus Woodland out there, we've been able to move forward with a number of these projects and get them done at the same time as a desal project was getting done. A number of these are well overdue, and it's really a great they being the water treatment plant took the initiative to move forward on some of these things. Has been very beneficial for us and keeping the plant moving forward. Okay, so now we're going to get into the general fund. These are general fund projects that are in progress of some kind. The top one, facility maintenance and repairs, various facilities that we're doing work on. Signage program, you'll see the number 2 and number 3 areas, the Rivertown landmark sign as well as the citywide signage program. Those will be our wayfinding signs. We're currently putting together a package for this designed to put the wayfinding signs in our parks. The PD simulcast tower, that has to do with the eBrick system. Still working with eBricks as to what their final design might be and what we will need to do or what we'll help them out with. Marquetti Park, it is partially general fund funded. Project has been awarded. Contract has been signed. We're looking for work to get started out there relatively soon. City Hall modifications. This is the basement and second floor. Final design is being finalized for that project currently. The Emergency Operations Center improvements, again, it's general fund funded, but this is the EOC down at the PD, looking to revitalize that, bring it up to current standards, I guess, with the communication wire, the TVs, the facilities that we have in there, just to help the EOC. And then lastly is the Nick Rodriguez Community Center roof replacement. That unfortunately will be rebid. It was rejected last night due to some bid irregularities. So we're going to package that thing out and get it back out to bid here within the next couple weeks with the hope that you will see it back at council hopefully for an award July, August. It takes a little bit for us to get these things out, but we'll turn around as quick as we can.
I thought this was being grant funded, the Nick Rodriguez roof replacement. Is it more than the grant? Is that what the 264 is for?
Yes.
Okay, so it's more than 2.2 million? Or
Yes. The money that you're seeing for right now would be the grant funded, the 2.1, whatever that might, 2.2, the build out for everything else. The truth is that it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to do out there. The roof itself is quite old, it's quite large. There's a lot of facilities on top of it. So that cost is pretty high. The idea was to try to stretch this as much as we can, and we still will. Part of the reasons why those bids were rejected last night is because we need to be good stewards of public funds, make sure we get the best bid we can and stretch this money as much as we can. The hope is to do some ADA improvements, improve more than just the roof at the facility if we can. But if you have a leaky roof and you're having problems within the facility, that does need to get fixed first before we start doing improvements inside.
Marquetti Park renovation, I noticed all the other parks are using park and lieu fees, different things. Why does Marquetti have a $400,000 general fund contribution?
So the contribution of the general fund for Marquetti has to go through our parks division within the maintenance yard. So there's money that's already within the general fund for parks that has been put together to try to increase the funding for this. And this was just a small portion of that park that was utilizing those maintenance funds from facilities.
So why wouldn't we use, could we use park and lieu fees instead of this $400,000 in general fund for that same work? I mean, is that a legitimate use of the park and lieu fees?
I would have to look into it.
I guess my question is, we could use the general fund for replacing playground that's broken, that doesn't qualify or whatever. So just curious why this particular park?
Yep. There weren't enough park and lieu fees to be able to fully fund that project.
Okay.
My understanding there, I took care of the county service area park and recreation, and so one of the things when a project would come forward, I would look at the census tracts in the county unincorporated areas that were adjacent to the city's boundaries. And a lot of times, funds would be accumulated in those census tracts. Nobody ever claims them. This county really wasn't quote unquote in the park business, but it was, I was able to use a lot of park dedication money in county census tracts, you know, to do projects. And I wonder if we ever take a look at the adjoining census tracts where park dedication fees are generated to make a request and bring them into the city.
We haven't done that to my knowledge. It's something that we can look into.
Okay, because it was a great source of revenue. It just sat there sometimes for 2 decades, and it just sat. So
Yeah, thank you.
And then the other questions on the EOC center improvements, so we're using 480 of general fund. I know that we have police department development impact fees, we have PEG money. Is there any other way of funding this through those other sources of income besides using general fund money?
The answer would be yes, and I think PEG funds might be something that we need to look into as we move forward with this project. There's not that many areas that those funds can be used. This facility and the PD over there where we actually do utilize it for these sort of purposes. Currently, this is what we have, but there is a possibility.
I would just say we'd have to do research on the PEG, because it's really for public education and broadcasting type of stuff, whereas, you know, emergency operations is obviously for a disaster where we have to activate our EOC. So I'm not quite sure, you know, we'd have to look at the legislation for PEG. I'm not sure if that would be a qualifying.
Yeah, I just know
those
we
funds.
hold press conferences at PD and things like, you know, it is a community room sometimes. So I guess if there's any way that it legitimately can use something other than general fund, definitely do not want to be spending general fund on it.
I think it's something we could look into. I've had some brief conversations with our IS director. I think we can continue to look into this.
Okay, and then on the citywide signage program, so we're spending $420 this year. Do we have a budget for replacing, I know like Chichibu Park signs replaced, it looks beautiful, right? I don't know what that costs, but do we have an idea of what it's gonna cost to replace all the park signs, all the wayfinding signs, all, you know, do all this stuff?
Not the entire project. Right now, we're still working on just the parks, trying to put those together, get a rough estimate, get the specs put together. Do not have the number right now. Haven't done a count of all the signs on all the parks. There could be a possibility they will have to do some picking and choosing because things are expensive. But I don't have an overall sign because the project not only it would include the parks, it would be wayfinding throughout the city. And right now it's just limited to the parks. Basically, with the small amount of funds we have right now is to try to focus on that.
So can we see an overall plan and kind of what the phasing approach is so we can see, you know, if parks are first, but maybe we want a city sign, you know, maybe a different order or different priorities, just so we're aware of kind of what the direction is you guys are currently moving on.
Sure, it's gonna be easy enough for the parks. As for the rest of the signs, the inventory is something that we haven't really gone into that much. It'd be difficult to probably pick out all the wayfinding signs throughout the city. But especially on the initial part where you can see the signs that are looking to replace, a lot of it's coming from the initial magazine that we were provided when we did the wayfinding, the branding. But yeah, we have done that at least for the parks areas. We know the signs there, we just need to do a takeoff.
Yeah, and then I guess the other thing is there's an existing sign that's in really poor condition at the Antioch Reservoir on Golf Course Road right there. And I think we could use water funds to replace that one as opposed to general fund and at least get that sign in that prominent location replaced with a nice new city sign.
Sure, we can add that. Okay. So there is more general fund funded projects. These are projects that have not necessarily been started or are currently active to try to make somewhat of a separation. You see up at the top, concrete repairs and structural repairs over at Pruitt Water Park. There's a number of these projects that we do have funding for out of the general fund. Very necessary projects to keep the facility open and running. You also see some art projects, our mural project that we've had, utility art boxes, artwork that we've had, as well as the restoration of public art. These are things that we've had in the capital. They are general funded. Some of the stuff's been sitting for a little bit, but there are opportunities for us if there was another usage for these funds.
What's the asterisk for Pruitt concrete improvement?
The idea is just to put those two together. Basically, the concrete improvements and the deck pool,
Okay.
they're one and the same.
Okay.
So are we currently doing a mural project right now in the city?
I'm unaware of.
I will
No.
say these funds have been, and I think probably when you were city manager, Ron, it was one-time revenues that city council allocated for murals and utility art box. And so the funds just keep rolling over continuously. So, I mean, that would be a good spot if council wanted to consider just releasing those funds back to the general fund or assigning them to a purpose where they can actually be spent and do some good rather than just holding a spot in the budget to not be spent.
So,
The-
go
I
ahead,
was say, because, yeah, you were city manager, the intent was, we started with that mural on
Mhm.
Sunset, well, it started with a beautification project, and the intent was to do murals
Mhm.
throughout different places in the city, and it just, we took forever to get that mural,
Mhm.
and it just, we haven't had a chance to get it going. I've heard people have reached out to me to indicate places they would like to see murals.
Mhm.
We just haven't come back to this program. I think the same with utility boxes, we haven't come back to that as well.
I do have a question with regards to the library. I mean, we're gonna own it someday. There is that mural, but it's in bad condition. If we take over the library, I would hope that we could spend some of the money redoing or enhancing, or whatever the right word is, the mural that's there, or replace the mural.
And there's a location along McCollum Trail back behind where Starbucks in Shape. A lot of people have reached out to me about putting a mural on that trail out there.
So there are some opportunities, like the finance director was saying. So some of these things just sat for a little bit, and if somebody has a vision or we'd like to move forward, it's there, or we can do something else with those funds.
Let me just say, because I know the person intimately, but when council member Catherine Freitas was on the city council for 8 years, there was actually a fee for development. I forget what it was, 0.5% or 1%. Any development would, and that money would go into public art. And as soon as she got off, they got rid of it. But, you know, that's how some of the public art actually started to happen in the city of Antioch. And if you ever go to Philadelphia, they have a similar fees for any downtown business and things of that sort. And frankly, you know, I think it's something that we might want to visit, you know, because it is a source of funding, and it's minimal, but it has, you know, very positive long-term effects in our community. And it was successful. The public art that we have in town was how it was paid for. So I'd like to visit that, you know, moving forward.
So next, it's another page of the pending general fund projects. Again, there's a number of projects that are designed to do work over at our water park over the next year or so. And then also you'll see here our zero emission vehicle transition plan. It's $1.2 million. Currently, we have done phase 1 of that plan. It did put in some charging stations for staff use or equipment use at the maintenance yard, the ones out here in front of City Hall, one at the PD, maybe one or two others. That's what we have right now. We've worked through this project. We've had a big scope of what we would do in terms of putting EV stations everywhere, and part of this is that's still the desire. If that's something that we are not in such a hurry to do, this is general fund money, hasn't been allocated yet. It's $1.2 million.
How much does it cost to build one of these things?
Those charging stations?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Just roughly.
I know that they double in size. I want to say the slow ones are like 5 and the fast ones are 50. It's like they're like tenfold for the fast chargers.
Like 50,000
$50,000.
per station. Well, frankly, Mr. Mayor, you know, I'm a big advocate of this, but with regards to our budget, I wouldn't mind cutting this down by half. And with the idea of putting 10 stations in, you know, in the next couple of years.
So it all depends on the infrastructure that's already in place. Currently, we're tapped out as far as how much power we have at the different locations. So what we would have to do is make an application with PG&E for a Rule 29, which they would bring the power to the site for free, but we have to be ready to build the project out on our end, putting in the chargers and all that. So a fast charger is about $75,000.
75? Okay. I mean, do we have plans to spend these funds in the next 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, if council moves ahead with it or repurposes the money
I mean, if
for,
it's 75,000, you're talking about 10, 11, 12 stations?
yeah, we have a plan put together that we can present that of where we thought the community center's one where we were thinking of putting 4 fast chargers that would be for the community to come out and charge. That would give 8 ports, 4
Sure.
fast chargers, 8 ports. Because the slower chargers, the type 2, they take a lot longer for people to charge, so that people have to wait longer. And that's what we're finding here at City Hall, that the chargers get tied up.
Yeah,
Because they're
I don't
type
have a
2.
problem with that. It's just, if we really realistically think we can only do 8, in the next fiscal year, then I would reduce, this amount. I would say, we continue to fund it years after, but, we're desperate for revenue, and if we really aren't going to spend this money, I would reduce it.
I would also say, I'm sure, as you all are aware, it takes forever to get PG&E to do anything, so it could be another year, or even longer, before they supply the power. And the fact, it was prior council's charge that they really wanted to proceed full force with zero emission, which I know is an overall state goal and so forth, but if you did cut it in half, that would be 600,000 that could be returned to, currently it's sitting in the capital improvement fund, that's where general fund moves its money to do projects, so, 600,000 would be a substantial help to the deficit
Yeah,
in the
so
general fund.
I would reduce it to 600,000, but, PG&E is the problem, right? Getting them.
It is, but they do have a program. If we get the application in place, we could probably have the chargers installed within 12 to 18 months.
Okay, so, I mean, if we just reduce it to 600,000, and next year 600,000, but at least for this year, we would be able to take general fund and put it back into our budget.
Right, so, if you wanted to reduce it for the current year, and then kind of it's whatever, once the 600,000 is spent, they would have to come back for an additional ask. If there is general fund money at that time, or if we're able to get a grant or something, to do additional
I
chargers.
think that's prudent. I would suggest we do that.
The grants that we've looked into have to do with purchasing certain types of vehicles, and really what the city needs, the type of vehicles, aren't being built right now. For instance, at Public Works, the big utility trucks, the car manufacturers don't build that, the F-350s, F-450s that we need. So really, this would be for the public, the infrastructure that for city fleet right now, I think we're good with what we have. So reducing it would be good, I think, too, at this time, and just build out for the public.
Councilmember Roach and I just attended Tri-Delta, and what is it, fuel cell, buses aren't going to be built. And so it's creating havoc all the way through, so.
Well, I think, if I remember correctly, we had conversation, I think it was about the auto fund for the police department's vehicles, and there was the discussion about if the zero emission goal in California, but are we even able to have a manufacturer who's gonna produce the vehicles that are needed to meet that goal? That's kind of what we heard in our Tri-Delta
Yeah.
meeting today, was that the zero emission state goal is in conflict with the new administration in Washington DC's goal nationally. And so here we have a vendor from Livermore who basically told Tri-Delta board today that they're basically pulling out of the construction of those vehicles because they don't know where this is gonna go in the next year to 2 years under this current administration.
And that's what we're finding, we
So
can't
we're kind
find
of like-
vehicles.
And the same thing, I mean, it's
Exactly.
very
Yeah.
expensive to go that route, but if we're not sure what's gonna happen in the next 3 years, is it even possible to accomplish that task if we don't have the manufacturers and the infrastructure to do it?
And I would say we are at least fortunate in Antioch, Target has a substantial electric,
Yeah.
row of electric charging over by Lumpy's. They've added a whole bunch of electric chargers there, so a lot of businesses in Antioch, even over by Sylvia's. So
Yeah,
it's not
Sylvia's
like,
has several,
it's not like
right? Two or
Antioch's the
three.
only operation where we're trying to get chargers out for the public. We have I don't know if it's necessarily enough, but we have plenty of businesses that are really starting to build out the charging infrastructure to where if we did reduce it to 600,000, I personally believe there's enough other infrastructure out there from businesses to cover what
Smart
we
and
Mr. Mayor,
Final
I-
also installed
I
some.
don't know if I would direct staff to reduce, zero emission vehicle transition to 600,000 and move that money back to the general fund.
And I guess, is that agreeable to the council? Yes? I guess the other thing I would ask for is a report on what the state requires, what our current state of our city is, and what we're planning on doing on meeting the state requirements, going forward, for our own fleet. Because I know we talked, as Mayor Pro Tem Rocha said, we talked about the police department, the fact that they don't have the facilities available to even charge electric vehicles if they were available to purchase. So I just don't want to be here a couple years from now and then have some mandates that we aren't meeting because we weren't aware of
But
them.
that's part of the problem. That's the conflict between the federal standard, state standard, and even in the state standard, there aren't manufacturers. And PG&E apparently is a very difficult issue.
Mhm.
So I think what you're going to be hearing on a large scale is that there are a lot of public agencies, transportation, that are not going to meet the 2030 goals. They're just not.
Because the type of vehicles that are mandating are the higher gross vehicle weight vehicles. They're
Yeah.
not building those. They're building the small cars and even like the F-150 pickup, but those don't meet the standards for weight classification.
Okay.
That's what we're finding.
I think it is something that we should be aware of, but the news is not good. I doubt that city of Antioch or any local jurisdiction is going to meet them.
So then the question is, why wouldn't we just take 1.2 million out instead of 600,000?
Well, because you do have vehicles, right, the community has vehicles.
So the community does, as far as staff, I think we have enough electric chargers right now for the EVs that we have purchased. We've purchased some F-150s, we've purchased, I think, some smaller vehicles. With the first phase that we did, we have plenty, I think, for city vehicles. If we want to give more chargers to the public, then that 600,000, we could build that over at the Antioch Community Center was the site that we thought would be a good site,
But I
since
mean,
we
if
get so many
if
people
we're,
out there.
if we're in a good position based on what I'm hearing, at this time that we are trying to do everything we can to try to build up our general fund, as Mayor Bernal just stated, maybe we should consider moving it all. Because, even
What's
with
your
the,
recommendation?
even with the murals, looking at whatever we can put into general fund.
I think, based on the budget discussions we've had, I think we should probably hold off on this project for now and repurpose that money would be
Okay,
the
that's
prudent
fine
thing to
with it.
do, I
That's
think.
1.2.
Okay.
I propose we double, Councilmember
Are you okay with that?
Freitas' 600,000 and make it 1.2. Okay, thank you.
And to the deputy director's point, and then what Member Freitas stated, or Rocha, I don't know if you'd want to consider the murals and the art program too, what you want to kind of do with those, because, that's another couple $100,000 that could get returned.
Well, that's why I'm
to
bringing that
downtown.
up. Considering it's been sitting for some time rolling over, and we're in a situation where we really need to go through and move whatever we can as we look into our general fund, bringing that down. I would propose that any item that is not actively, in place with the project, we should consider moving that to general fund. That's not to say I'm anti-public art, but if we don't have any projects right now to speak of, just like the 1.2 we just got done talking about with the electric plug-in stations, at this time, I don't know that we are in a position to say, well, we can hold off on this, we can hold off on that. I think right now, anything that doesn't have a plan or an action item to move forward, at this time, we should really consider moving back into general fund. We can always make those decisions later if we need to, but that would be my suggestion would be when we look at murals, when we look at utility art box, when you look at what we just discussed a few minutes ago, the zero emission policy, anything that we can potentially move into general fund, because we're going to be having to take anything we can to build up, because we obviously know we're gonna be making some significant cuts soon.
So let me just ask, are murals and utility box artwork, is that a Public Works, or is it Park and Recreation, or who's in charge?
Well, it's within the capital. Typically, we're working with Park and Recreation, though.
So from Park and Recreation, there's no any activities with regards to murals and utility box artwork? I just want to know,
It doesn't sound like there is, that's why I said
I just
that.
want to affirm if that's true or not.
Well, good evening. So currently there is no current projects. We did just do a project in front of Deer Valley. Some high school students volunteered some time, and we purchased the material so those students could do one of the utility boxes. The plan was to use this summer to build out our program, to start activating locations and activating artists' interest to get the project rolling, but we do not have that at this moment, so.
And the same is true at Antioch High School. I remember them doing the utility boxes as well.
Right.
From their art departments.
Right, so we can move in a different direction where we want this to be a youth-led situation, and if there's funds to buy supplies and we have artists that want to volunteer their time, we can reduce the funds and we can move in that direction.
Well, I would suggest we embrace Mayor Pro Tem's suggestion, zero out murals and utility box artwork, but with the direction that Park and Recreation will try to develop this, so possibly mid-year or next year, we can actually do some of the funding.
Sounds good.
So let's interrupt there, if I might ask, just looking down this list, it seems like the rest of them all have to do with the water park. So can we defer all of these out and take 3.1 million? I mean, I think maybe zero this whole list out, or are there mandatory things at the water park that need to be done?
There are mandatory things. So me and Scott have a bid that we are in process of doing all the plaster, so that you see that on there. A lot of the concrete work around LAP needs to be redone. That was also in the bid package that will be going back out this summer.
So, you know, Councilmember Freitas and I were at the water park for your wonderful Easter event, and it seemed like all the pool, and I'm speaking as an observer, all the pools were open. Everybody seemed to have a good time. I know that some of the slides need to be redone. Are these health and safety issues that we're talking about, or are they aesthetic?
No, this is a health and safety issue. So Cal OSHA comes out every year before we start, and we've been patching Boulder Pool to pass, but it needs to be fixed permanently.
Okay. So I guess my request would be that anything that's not health and safety on this list, that's something that we're trying to do to stay ahead of deferred maintenance, I would ask that we could possibly identify it so we could consider pulling it off.
You know, on the subject, you know, unfortunately, we have to expend a lot of money at Pruitt Park, because otherwise we're going to lose Pruitt Park. And so I think, you know, the question is one of what are the greatest needs, either, you know, health-wise, safety, or just wear and tear. And I mean, there's a lot of them, and they cost a lot of money. And so if you could prioritize them, and particularly this year, do health and safety, you know, as a priority.
Yes, so that's what me and Brad actually worked on last year. We put together 0, 1, 2, 3, 4s. 4s being aesthetic, 1 being if we don't get it done, we're not going to be open. Last year we attacked a lot of those 0s. This year is the 1. So making sure the coping, plaster, and the decking is safe to walk on.
So those are the three major projects?
Yes, and those are the ones.
And the other can be deferred?
The other ones can be deferred in terms of like the giant slide.
So
The two giant slides.
Mayor, I think we should take that suggestion. Not that these projects come off, you know, we know that we need to come back to visit them, but for at least this year, do the health and safety and the other projects as their general funds, move those back to the general fund.
And I guess we could push those projects out 2 years and just say they're unfunded for now, correct?
Well, 1 year, right?
Or yeah,
Just
to the,
1 year.
yeah, or to the next.
So yeah, I agree. There's a lot of money out there. The park does need work. I would recommend that we do pull some money aside to allow for some studies to happen out there. Possibly get somebody on
That's fine.
board to do a overall master plan to give us some priorities. Maybe even some design in there. But let us put out an RFQ that kind of gets that started, because I think we're at the stage where we really need to look at it holistically, and it might be a good idea to get somebody on board. So if there would be, a couple $100,000 in there or something.
I think this is a great suggestion, because we really do need to know, overall, what are the issues, and get some current prices, architectural design, things of that, ADA requirements and things of that sort, and then come back to the council.
So the water park's very similar to our water treatment plant. In many ways, not just that there's water at both, but you have staffs taking care of a very large and very difficult facility. What recreation does out there is amazing with the staff that they have. And they continue to keep things working. At some point, it needs to be better than just working. I think that it would be good to have it refreshed, and I think that's going to take a master plan, some ideas. Not that, that we are getting some of those, but if we're going to pull back everything, do the kind of bare bones that we're doing, the trip hazards, the other safety issues, that seems like it'd be fine, but maybe add in something for some studies that we can do, and then if we're going to do work a year or two down the road, it will be with an engineer who has given us some advice. Staff can be involved. I know that the assistant city manager and the director know their facility, but it's sometimes good to get an outside engineer or somebody to take a look at the facility.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Wright, I think, identified the Pruitt concrete improvement as one of those top priorities, yes? And the Pruitt pool decking, yes or no? Yes. And what's the third one you said? Was a priority? I thought you said three things.
Pool resurfacing,
The
number
pool
4,
resurfacing.
phase 4.
So those would be funded, in this fiscal year. The others, such as the peak structure remediation, and do we need to do, what's the other one?
Yes. All of
Yes,
it
it's-
needs to be done,
Well,
and
I
even
know
the
we
list
need to
isn't
do
true.
all of them, but, but we also have a debt we have to address. So, and I don't have a problem with, I'm not sure it's gonna cost a couple $100,000, but, to put a holder in place there to actually do the feasibility of the park.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much the feasibility will be. I'll also let Brad speak, but there was 50,000 included in the 25 budget initially for a Pruitt evaluation. It may cost more, but when Brad was evaluating the park initially, we do need some sort of mechanical evaluation and other to let us know the exact cost of things. So a master study might be more robust than 50,000, but that is what is actually in the budget thus far for.
That is something that we're actively pursuing, and we actually do think that 50,000 will be sufficient to cover that. Coming back to the Pruitt Peak structure remediation, that was presented in the Parks and Recreation budget presentation. We anticipate that the total cost to actually fully repair and actually replace that structure is going to be closer to $3.5 million. And so if that's something that the council wanted to pause at this time, the funds that are shown here, the $363,653, that's what's currently remaining in that. It was originally $400,000. We've spent about $37,000 on the studies to determine that structure needs to be replaced. So if the council wanted to pause that and return the remaining funds to the general fund at this time, that would be appropriate until we're able to identify funds to fully address that feature.
How does that impact our operation this summer? To the comment that was made by one of the people from the audience at our meeting last night, does this significantly impact the desirability of people that come out to our water park?
I mean, it is the main feature of the water park. There are the two tallest slides in the park, so those are the features that would appeal to the 10 to 12-year-olds, so the older of the target population of the water park. So there is disappointment for members of the public when they come. We are upfront about that. The features have been closed. This is the third summer that they've been closed. So we are upfront about it. We have signage. We're publicizing it on our website and even in the activity guide that it's been unavailable. So the public is understanding at this point that those features are not available, but obviously it would be more desirable to have them.
And so to the point about increasing, I know that was discussed last night, the fees, do you still feel that the fee increase is warranted, being that we're not, I know this discussion comes after the fee request or the proposal. Do you feel like the fact that possibly these improvements are not going to be happening this year, if has any impact on the proposal to increase the fees?
We did make that recommendation for a couple of reasons. Number one, there was a fee increase last year, but prior to last year, there had not been a fee increase to general admission at the water park since 2016. So at this point, we're kind of catching up to those years that fee increases didn't happen. So that's one piece. The other piece is that we seek the increases to the master fee schedule now, but we're already in general admission season. So the fee increases that you approve, they won't be implemented until next year. So we have an opportunity to revisit that if council would like to.
Interesting, okay.
Ms. Merchant, is it clear where we're going?
Yes, so the 363,653, that's going to be paused, returned to the general fund, and evaluated at a future date. Yes.
And then the other Pruitt Park building renovations, mechanical improvements, those are all being deferred as well? Is that correct? We just want to know the full list of everything we need to leave in here, I guess, is the bottom line.
Yeah, I would probably leave that as well because we are looking to replace the filter for the lap pool. So that's a mechanical situation that's dire.
So that's the 88,000, leave that in?
Yes.
And then how about the evaluation, the structural, the $50,000 evaluation?
And so we would rename that, and that would be the assessment of the full park. I already have a conversation with Aquatic Design firm to,
And the 50,000,
will be the
is
assessment that Scott is
Okay.
referring
Will
to.
that cover it?
I
Okay,
believe so.
perfect, so we'll leave that in. And then the building renovations, 25,000?
I need new
it's
paint.
not enough. I mean, go ahead and do the building renovation.
Thank you. I'll take 25
Alright.
from Mr. Freitas.
I'm scrambling, so you gotta,
Hey, look,
Don't get too cheap, Mr. Ryan.
and then resurfacing, the pool resurfacing phase 4 is a yes. The Pruitt pool decking used for the concrete improvements, 71,000 is a yes, and the Pruitt concrete improvements, 685 is a yes, correct?
yes, sir.
Okay, so apart from those, everything else would go back into the
General fund.
general fund.
Right, so basically, what I have returning to the general fund, just to clarify, is the murals and utility artwork, the 1.2 million for the EV, and then the 363,000 for the structure
Yes.
remediation. So just clarifying,
that's
so we're
what
all
I
on the same, yes,
understand.
Correct.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. So now there's projects in progress. Well, I should stop, or are we good with what we've discussed, general fund?
Yeah, let me just say, I think the mayor did indicate something, even though we've taken money out and zeroed it out, sometimes if you delete that, it sometimes gets lost. I do think, still list it as unfunded in following years. So, we still stay focused on the needs of the water park or other items. Some of these things get lost, even murals and the utility box. I would just zero it out, but still keep it listed.
Yes, sir. What you'll see is we'll just push it back. It'll be shown
Sure.
3 or 4 years out, so that way we don't lose sight of it. We can use it for planning purposes, but yet it's not being budgeted for.
And I think the other thing that's important is to give as accurate a numbers as possible when we're projecting out, like the 363 turned into 3.5 million, right? So I think it's really important, if it's whatever it is, put that number out there so we're aware of the magnitude of what we're looking at going forward.
Yes, sir. Okay. Project in progress. There is some stuff going on. We'll start at the top with the Amtrak station upgrades. As you know, most of us have been out there, visited the site. We're looking to do some upgrades out there, including just some betterments and making ourselves a nice little linear park that would be a good for the people that do use the train station. The City Hall modification phase 2 is also being shown out there. Like I said, it's almost completely designed. EOC improvements will also be, they're underway right now. We can talk about future funding with that. If we can get out of the general fund, we will. As well as maintenance repairs, the integration upgrade of access controls, that's our security, alarm systems, and video surveillance. Below that, we've talked about a number of these already. This installation of the PD simulcast tower, it's the E-Bricks area, looking to happen near 75 Walton Lane. The Nick Rodriguez Community Center, that's a project that will get going again. It'll be out for bid here pretty quick, so it will be in progress. Our downtown Wi-Fi, I've been working with the IS department on that, walking around trying to find the best way to get that to work properly and to be something that we can bring to council. Then the Public Safety and Community Resource Department facilities. Again, this is across the street over at 300 West 2nd. We're using these funds to go through the space planning. Figure out that facility is going to be able to be accommodating both the Public Safety and Community Resource Department as well as the Human Resource Department. And lastly, you will see the zero emission vehicles. It is listed as a project in progress just because we did the first phase of it, but as we talked, it's kind of on pause right now.
Scott, on the City Hall office modifications phase 2, what does that all involve?
So you're going to see some, basically, we need to reconstruct some spaces. Over on the second floor and in the basement, we're utilizing facilities that weren't meant to be utilized this way 40 years ago when the building was made. So you'll see some redefining of some office spaces, some opening up of some areas, possibly a redefining of how the second floor is used just because of the long linear hallway through there, possibly reorienting how people come into the facility to try to make the workspace a little bit more inviting and interactive, open it up a little bit more, try to utilize the space a little bit better. The basement was a dispatch and a reproduction room and a mail room, and now you got IS and inspection and development engineering and capital improvements down there. So trying to make that space a little bit cleaner, open up the reproduction areas. If you guys aren't familiar, there's an electrical outlet right in the middle of the room that needs to be removed so you can utilize the space. Minimize the area within the mail room. It's quite large, but we can kind of narrow that up and utilize that space again a little bit better just to try to find some space for all the people that we have. And also a little bit warmer too. You're looking at, we've had some rehabilitation done over the last 25 years, maybe some paint and some carpet. Some of that's due to the flooding that we've seen down the basement over the last number of years. But basically, it's to redefine the spaces to make them more usable and to brighten up the situation also.
So as much as I hate to ask this question, being that I pushed really hard years ago for this project right here, but is there any way of deferring this for a year or two, these improvements?
I would prefer not to.
I guess I'd say you could definitely defer. However, you kind of have one incongruous state. You see the first floor is done, you go to the second floor and you're walking back into the 80s and people are piled on top of each other. I don't know if you've ever walked the second floor. If not, I would encourage all of you to. There's stacks upon stacks, filing coming out of everywhere. Everybody's sitting on each other's laps. It's dark and dank, especially the basement. As Scott said, there's poles in the middle of the place. The costs are only going to increase in a couple of years with the rising costs. So then when we come back to council, it's going to be even more money. This money has been specifically pegged and set aside. Since we did the first floor remodel, things kind of got put on pause a little bit with COVID, which is really kind of pushed things back. So
Yeah, I couldn't say it better than Director Merchant, but I also think our staff deserves better facilities too. They deserve a good space, just like the city, maintenance, Terra Care, all that stuff. Our staff also is a customer, and we need to give them a better space.
The other reality, Ms. Merchant, how much, once we finish this tonight, staff is going to come back to the city council where cuts are going to have to be made. And so what's kind of the ballpark figure that we'll have to reduce?
Are you talking overall from the general fund
overall.
budget? You know, I think we're looking at potentially at least, you know, 10 million each year, so,
So, I mean, that's part of the reality. All
Yeah.
these requests are valid.
yes.
You know, but I think what the mayor is trying to do is, you know, trying to cut, because we know in next meeting we have that we're going to have to do some very severe cutting. And so a lot of times we're saying, okay, we understand, but when we come back and have to cut an additional $10 million, everything will not be able to be financed. I mean, that's the reality.
No, absolutely, and I, you know, I think too, with any of these projects that are general fund and moving forward, if there is any, say the project, once we get it scoped out, comes in at 1.5 million, we're not, you know, it's not like we're gonna rush out and say, what else can we spend the 100,000 on? You know, the funds would definitely be washed, and of course it is a council decision, but this is a project that's kind of had ongoing delays and,
No, I
Yeah,
get it,
so-
and, you know, employees should be, all of them should be treated well and not discriminated against because you're assigned to the basement, but I mean, I get it, I
and you
understand.
want to have a place that you want to come to work, not like, oh my gosh, I'm
Right.
going into my dark corner that the window leaks and I have to kind of shift away from the wall so I'm not getting wet when it rains.
Let me just, on that point, I'm assuming, because the basement used to get flooded a lot, that actions have been taken so to prevent flooding from entering the basement?
Yeah, the floods that have happened or been have not necessarily been to any detriment of the facility. The last major one we have, somebody actually broke the backflow, water backflow outside of City Hall. The water came down from 2nd Street, down that slope into the basement. So it wasn't a natural thing. We've had some issues with piping down there that have been fixed. So
So we've taken,
we've taken precautions, we've done what we have, but in fact, the fact is that we're looking at old facilities down there. I do believe that this work needs to be done. I believe that you have a large portion of your staff that lives in these areas that has been looking forward to this, and I might not have been able to get this out as quickly as I wish I had it, but I don't think that the rest of the staff should feel that. I think that this is a project that should go. When we started the process, when we did this council chambers and we did the 1st floor, we did the 3rd floor, and we did the fountain out, the idea was to upgrade City Hall. It wasn't to just do 2 floors and leave the other 2 floors as they are.
I'm not arguing about any of the reasons, they're all sound. But we do have a reality, and that is a $10 million cut. That's the reality. So even though we're understanding, and we're saying, okay, now, when this council in the month of June has to cut $10 million, it's not gonna be easy. That's all I'm saying.
One question I have is related to the Public Safety and Community Resources Department facility, the 833,000. What's the timeline on this project, and what's the plan? Are we gonna utilize this space? Are we looking to lease it? What's our,
Are we keeping the
I mean,
department?
I'd just like to know what the plan, I mean, for that facility.
So the current plan that Public Works is working off of is we have a designer on board,
Okay.
working on space planning for the building to house the Public Safety and Community Resource Facility or Department, as well as the HR Department. That's what staff is moving forward to with the facility at 800 West 2nd Street.
We have space shortages, as you've been told several times, so, right now, I'm not sure what the ETA is. I'm looking at our deputy director.
Yeah, my main concern is that if we're investing this amount of money, are we gonna utilize it to its fullest capacity? And if we're not, I would have some reservations on this. That's why I'm asking the question.
And I will state that the money for this facility is the earnings in the ARPA interest fund. So the prior city council passed a resolution that the earnings on the ARPA fund would go to rehabilitate this building. So it's not general fund dollars. I just will at least make that part clear.
It's not general fund dollars.
No.
Could they be reallocated somewhere else?
The money, the interest earnings could, but like I said, the city council did pass, a resolution, the prior city council, to allocate the interest earnings in the ARPA fund to rehabilitation of the facility, because we knew when we purchased the facility with the ARPA funds, it was gonna need rehabilitation, and they didn't want to pull that from the general fund when we had this other source of funding available.
How much is available in interest earnings?
So as of December 31st, there was 833,000. I believe through June, there might be another 150 to 200,000 that would
Like
be
$1 million,
interest
like $1
earnings.
million, say?
Yes.
Okay. That's a lot of money.
So right now, we hope to occupy the building by the end of the year. We have a company.
Calendar year, fiscal year.
Calendar, end of the year. We're working with the elevator company to rehabilitate the elevator. That's scheduled to be completed around September. We're also working with the architectural firm to do the space planning right now for the HR department on the second floor, and then the other department, the community resources department, on the first floor. And they're going through some drawings right now with each director on that. And that's where we're at, but the goal is to occupy the building by the end of the calendar year.
I asked this before, but I'll ask it again. So did we have the maintenance of that building and operation built into the budget for next year?
Yeah, I believe we did put that in the budget, in the facilities budget.
That's
So
a
like
question for you.
Was it like 250,000, I think is what I recall?
We did ask for in the facilities budget, yes.
Okay, so it is built into the
Yes.
budget? Okay. And I think it was about 250. Was that for a full year, 250? Do you recall?
I think it was less than that, actually.
Okay.
And it was a little high on the electricity. That was the major cost, because we weren't sure what PG&E was doing with all their rate increases, so that we bumped that up a little higher than I think it's actually gonna turn out to be. Because I spoke with our rep at PG&E, and they're claiming that there's gonna be a 13% reduction because of they overcharged on the rate. So there could be a reduction in rates coming to the city, I think in September.
Yeah, what are we doing with the space in HR as well as public safety and community resources? What are we doing with the space when they
Oh, the
when
current-
they vacate?
Oh, yeah, so the finance director is already in
Payroll.
line to get it, to use
Yeah,
it.
payroll will be getting human resources department because their space is compacted. And then public safety, community resources, we thought about putting code enforcement over there, but we're not sure yet.
Code enforcement at?
Yep.
At where?
The
At
substation area.
Substation area, since they're working with.
And then
PD.
I believe there was a request to hire two procurement.
No, that's not in the
That
budget.
wouldn't be.
Is one of the
Oh, that's fine.
recommendations to use the substation as a police substation, which was its original design?
Chief, you look great in a uniform and a suit, so I almost didn't recognize you today.
Thank you. And I assume we're talking about the substation that's at the water park? Yes, if we can get that space back, yes, we would like to use it. I know it's going to need some work. I think before we talk about use and getting in there, just being able to get in that space, look and see what it looks like now and what needs to be done so that we can make it a usable space and put some personnel out of there.
Because a lot of planning went into that. Captain Vanderklut represented the police department and the chief of police at the time. And so it was designed specifically upon the request of the police department, and unfortunately never really used.
Yes, and I know it's been redesigned to some degree since the Department of Public Safety and Community Resources have moved in there. So it would just be a matter of us, when we kind of figure out where everyone's gonna land, getting up there, seeing what the space looks like, and seeing what personnel can work out of there.
Okay, thank you.
In addition, that substation is our secondary EOC also.
Is the water treatment plant also a secondary EOC, or is that no longer?
I don't believe it's on the EOC list. Okay, so here's our projects in progress, our second phase of this. So the security fencing at city facilities, that's ongoing for us. The park upgrades, we'll be looking to do work. I think the next park we're probably gonna go to is Fairview Park to do some work at that park. It needs a complete refresh. Jacobson Park, as I said, is going to be under construction soon. Took us a minute to get them under contract, but we now have contracts for both Jacobson and Marquetti Park. The trail maintenance program is ongoing. I spoke briefly about the bicycle garden. It's under design, and the design's gone through a number of iterations. We've had a number of neighborhood meetings about it. That'll be a good project. Again, we're doing that with CCTA. Also, you see our sidewalk repair program. You see in there, there's that $940,000. There is some rollover money in there that we're trying to get through. So that's why you see that amount is in there. It's not due to lack of work. There is definitely a lot of concrete work, but oftentimes in these projects, it takes us a minute to get a contractor under contract. So then we end up with a backlog. It also affects the amount of money we have. So we're working through everything with them.
Excuse me, wasn't the amount $400,000 per year? on that?
$450,000 per year. Typically, it's $150,000 out of gas tax, water fund, and sewer fund.
So basically, it's a rollover from this year
It
to
was a
next year?
Yes, sir.
Let me go back. The park facilities upgrade, it's specific to one park.
No, but the next park, the park that's in our sites right now is Fairview, Fairview Park off of
And how
Crestview.
much of general fund, is the general fund revenue being used?
I do not believe we're looking at general fund money for that particular project.
So they're part dedication fees?
Either that or the Delta Fair Fund, I'm not sure. I'd have to look. Traffic calming, and then down at the bottom, $21 million worth of improvements on L Street. Big ticket, but just so out of that 21, you figure $13 million is grant for phase 2, 1.5 is a grant for phase 1. So we've done a pretty good job of parlaying our money into a street that's been looking to be improved since I got hired. So it's been there for quite a while.
Did you say earlier there was a $4 million grant with Pat?
Yeah, so the work with CCTA, we had five of the grants that they did. So Bicycle Garden got
Bicycle
$4
Garden was
million.
the four.
Yeah.
Got it, okay.
This
Thank
is
you.
going on.
I do want to bring up a project that was brought to the prior council 3 different times on L Street with regards to some of the surplus property to be used as a pathway for heroes, working with the Delta Veterans Group. And the city council, each and every time, thought it was a great project for us to move forward. And I don't want to point fingers, but it was delayed. I'd like us to come back to revisit that now that the L Street project's moving forward, because one of the requests from the veterans and the new nonprofit was to work with the architects and engineers with design for some of the surplus property that is on L Street. So I won't go into all the history now, but it was a community-based project that had a lot of benefits, and it simply has been ignored, and I would like to bring it back for discussion, because one of those items would be to work with some of the consultants on this particular project with the surplus property.
Yeah, that would be great. It's not something that I've had direct attention towards. There's been many discussions about those surplus properties. Habitat Humanity was going to build 5 houses there. We've had a number of things that are going to happen out there. Linear parks, utilize it for storm drainage. If it's a veterans park.
We did try, as mayor, with Habitat for Humanity, that did not work out. We also tried with veterans housing, did not work out. And so this is a beautification park project with regards to surplus property. So it would be something that I think would enhance the downtown. And we've made, like I said, 3 presentations to the prior council. Everyone embraced it, including the District 1, council members. So it died, and I would like to bring it back now that we're moving forward with this project.
Sure, I'd be glad to talk about it.
Can I ask, Scott, can I go back to a question? So on Marquetti Park, the 1.871 million, there 400,000 of that was general fund funded, correct?
Yes.
So is it possible, as we get more park and lieu fees in, to replace the general fund 400,000 with park and lieu fees as they become available? Since the reason it wasn't park and lieu funded, according to Brad, was it was we didn't have enough park and live funds.
Right, I'll have to look and see if we're able to reimburse ourselves after the fact with that, we'll have to research that.
So the Marquetti Park project has already been awarded, so those funds have been obligated. I'm sure we could do something with it, but
I mean, if they haven't been paid out, I would just like to look at that as a possibility.
When did we last look at the Quimby Act and participation fees? Has it been a while?
I can't recall it.
Okay,
Time and
I
forever,
would
so.
underscore this, again, we're losing purchasing power, by not keeping some of our fees and assessments current. And if the finance director cannot remember what it is, I suspect it's old. And so I think we need to take a look at that, because it is a source of revenue. Every
Agreed.
house built pays for it. And so I think it is a source of funding that frankly we have been losing for a couple of years.
and it is something we need to look into. The deferred impact fees, as well as any of those other fees, are something we need to reinvestigate.
NPDS, park dedication, there are other fees. It astounds me that we have not kept current with at least the rate of inflation.
And that's something that we would be willing to look at. It hasn't always been the desire to raise those fees.
I
if it's something
understand,
that's
but there's always consequences, and here we are.
Understood. Okay, as we finish this up, you're gonna see our park pavement plugs, leveling courses, project that we discussed a little bit last night and we'll be discussing again in the future. Our street light improvements, we're working on that. We've purchased some of the equipment that we're gonna need, and we're gonna need to get that installed. Most likely it's gonna go in phases. The current thought is, as we're constructing it, probably Freeway North as phase 1, but we're still trying to look at what we can get for the money that we have.
Excuse me, is that to go to LED lighting?
Yes.
Is that what that project's for?
Yeah, basically, you're changing heads.
Okay, so we're still under we still have induction lighting in place, except for the ones that we've replaced out with LED?
Yes.
And I noticed that the 390s this year, and then you have $1.1 million next year, $1.1 million the following year, which are both unfunded. So we're not gonna make very much progress when it comes to the first phase, correct?
We'll see what we can get out of it. There's been a lot of discussion about it by various residents. Maybe we're able to have a limited scope, but we're able to do something more. If I can't get everything from the freeway north, we start moving north. Maybe it's 10th Street north, and we start doing something like that with the funds that we have.
Can we see a kind of a plan, a phasing plan, or
Okay.
so that we can at least, because that is definitely something that I have heard a lot about, is the amount of lighting. I'm sure PD as well, as far as our city could be much more lit up.
Is it two-phase, is it broken into two phases? Is that what it is?
Well, right now, it's probably multiple phases when this goes down, depending on what we can get, just because it's a rather large project. You have a lot of street lights, so I'm not sure. I would say
Yeah, I
it's
think
probably
when I
gonna be
looked
2, 3, 4 phases.
I think when I asked previously, because District 2, Mira Vista,
Mhm.
that's an old area that, that's where I grew up at. And that lighting would make a significant difference with people feeling safe. So there's a number of elderly residents that have written to me, their children have written to me about that. And I think when I asked the question back in January, what I was told was that there's two phases, like you said, the freeway north. And I think the second phase might be from the freeway going south. I'm not sure about that, but I'd like to know more about that in specific.
Understood. We can put something together, what we think we can phase with the dollars we have. So we'll move down a little bit. Exciting stuff, Hydorn Ranch Road, Pruitt Ranch traffic signal. As you know, they've just opened up Hydorn Ranch Road. We're working on it. The reason why the signal's been there for a little bit, just so people know, there was a right-of-way issue in that with one of the returns out there for us to try to get our facility in. We need to do a little bit more. So we did put the stop signs up. Stop signs at least will prevent some of the near accidents that we're hearing about. But we are in design and as well as discussions with the right-of-way issues that we have over there. The East Antioch Creek outfall, that's our outfall over off of Fulton Shipguard Road. It just needs some work. It was damaged even more in the winter of '22 with the big storms. We've been dealing with FEMA to see if we could get some help with that. We've also approached the feds to see if we can get grant funding for this work also. It is an important thing that we're trying to work towards and get that done. But it is expensive.
What about the county flood control district?
We have not approached them. It's not, we will approach them.
Scott, what's the improvement gonna do out there? I mean, what's gonna be the benefit of the $2.5 million project?
So you're going to be able to stop inflow and outflow of river water. Right now, you have a couple pipes in there. The pipes are in good shape, but they're kind of washing out around. So you have flooding happening down McElhaney in those properties right there, sometimes happening from the river coming in because the pipes aren't able to, the flapper gates aren't keeping the water from the river moving inland. Within there also, you have some utilities that have been damaged. You have water lines and sewer lines that are also in the area that would be fixed as part of this project too.
Is that the highest priority project? I know that like West Antioch Creek has got 2 leads back in it again, and I know that we did a lot of work to keep that from flooding out O Street. So is this the most important project to work on? As opposed to everything we have storm drain wise?
Yes, this is an important project. It's an expensive project. It's not something we're looking to bear the brunt of. We're hoping to have some sort of either grant funding from or assistance from FEMA to do. It's a difficult project for us within the stormwater budget to do.
Because we don't have a stormwater budget, right?
It's very limited.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
To comment on that, well, first of all, thank you for the stoplight at Hydorn and Pruitt Ranch. It's very dangerous out there, so I'm happy to hear about that. And this is for the city manager, the East Antioch Creek and the West Antioch Creek. Aren't we currently working with Townsend on getting funding?
We are, and we have some updates I'll send, so let me just look through my email. But
Okay.
yes, we put in funding requests for these
For
too.
those, okay, I just, because I'm like, I remember those were topics of conversation when we were in DC.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure, both those projects, West Antioch Creek to try to continue with the desilting and open that up is about a $3 million ask to continue that, and about the same ask for the outfall of East Antioch Creek. Both are very important. The work that we have done at West Antioch Creek has been very successful from what I see, eliminating the flooding on 10th Street as well as down O Street as well as our Corporation Yard. Haven't seen it even move down the creek a little bit. It seems to have actually alleviated quite a bit of flooding.
Mr. Rennie, in the past, the County Board of Supervisors, specifically Supervisor Tom Powers, on an annual basis, would go back to Washington DC, begging for money for flood control. And it was a very, very successful, venture, and he would represent a lot of the projects throughout all of Contra Costa County. I don't know if they're still doing that, but when he was there, we benefited in the city of Antioch, matter of fact, on the West Creek. Part of the money that came was from the flood control district and some of the federal grant funds. And so when you talk to the county, see if they still do that on an annual basis, and we can coordinate with them and make a request.
Sure, we can do that. Okay, as we move down, you'll see a couple other things at the water treatment plant improvements. Those are general improvements throughout the plant that are typically done by the maintenance staff out there. Valve replacement, other improvements that needs to be done, hatches, doors, things like that they can fix. Our desalination project is getting close to getting wrapped up. It's coming along very well. I look forward to everybody being able to get the tour of the plant at some point. But it is moving along. We're still working with the contractor. We are hoping for testing in July, and that it should be the 7-day testing, hopefully, if things consider to go the direction that they are. So I believe lastly, these are the new projects that have been added to the CIP this year. We've probably talked about most of them already. We can go down again. Irrigation controller upgrades, it is what it is. We have old irrigation controllers that do need to get upgraded to provide adequate water to our medians for the most part. The marina upgrades are improvements down at the marina. The pedestal replacement at the marina, those are electrical pedestals that are necessary for the people that are docked in the area. The playground replacement program, it is what it is to go to the next playground. And then the 3 after that were traffic calming projects that the mayor had spoke of, James Dolan, Sycamore, as well as West 10th Street. We do have some rough designs we're looking into. It is something that we do plan on moving forward with, but we're working through those. And lastly, you're going to see the countywide smart signal project that we're pretty excited about. This will be upgrading our traffic signals, something we haven't done in quite a while. These smart signals should be very beneficial. Corridors that we're looking to do is Summersville and Auto Center, from Delta Fair to Mahogany, a rather congested area in that area, as well as Empire to, I believe, Hydorn on Lone Tree Way, right in front of Lowe's. So again, these two areas that are relatively congested, hoping that this newer technology will help people move through areas that we've been working on moving people through for years.
Regarding the countywide smart signal project, since we have a joint maintenance agreement with Brentwood, and I know there's some matching funds that we're paying towards the cost of that project, have we asked Brentwood to share the costs when it relates to the stuff that fronts along their city limits?
We have not had the conversation with Brentwood yet.
Could we have that with them?
We can, and we can count the signals. I'm not sure exactly how many there'll be, but yeah.
And we're having a meeting next week with the Public Works team and city manager, so we will put it on the list.
Okay, perfect.
We
And-
can talk about it. As you know, last night, we also did talk about the extension of the agreement between us and Brentwood in terms of the work that we're talking about, maintenance of street lights as well as the roadway.
Do the irrigation controller upgrades provide efficiency, save water and from wasting water and things like that?
They're going to be more efficient. They're going to be easier for us to control. Our other ones are becoming obsolete, harder to deal with.
Yeah, so these irrigation controllers are smart controllers. They'll have flow sensors installed, new flow sensors, and the idea is that we'll get better real-time alerts when there's, water leaks that happen before we lose a lot of water.
Do we fund any of this out of the water fund? Any of these irrigation controllers out of the water fund?
Currently, no, we don't.
I'd like to look into what percentage we could possibly fund through the water fund, since it is a water saving measure, and possibly save to the extent that it's helping save water.
Okay.
Scott, on the marina upgrades, are those have-to-haves or would like to have? I'm sorry.
Those are, that should be happening, maintenance that should be happening to the docks, but it's been deferred because of lack of funding. That was one of the reasons we were asking for some extra money on the fees last night. But yeah, it's for the upgrades and the maintenance that needs to be happening on a regular basis to the docks.
Okay. I mean, it's a tough one because you have, we've been deferring it for a long time, and now this is the year we really want to make sure we do it, but then this is probably the worst year to be doing it. So that's why the questioning is always.
The Marina Fund, and when you saw the budget too, these aren't included in the Marina Fund budget, I'm aware, because the general fund would have to pay it, because the general fund's subsidizing the Marina Fund $700,000 over the next 2 years just for regular operations and maintenance. So I am pretty sure those are not included in the Marina Enterprise Fund budget as it is. I believe these are unfunded.
Unfunded,
Yeah,
and
so.
but we wanted to make council aware of the need. And these are the new ones we added. One that's been on for a while is the marina dredging. That really needs to happen because we're having trouble with some of the bigger boats being able to come in because of the sediment that's built up over the years, and that's unfunded also. Well, right now we're anticipating about $500,000.
And I believe, Carlos, you were going to look into the Tidelands Fund, if any of that could be used for the dredging.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I think there's only about 150,000 in there right now, so it wouldn't cover all the dredging. But I believe, yes, it would fall under that waterfront Tidelands area.
Is there any money available from, what is the California, what do they call
Waterways.
waterways?
Yeah, we're looking into that.
Okay.
Are these traffic calming projects absolutely necessary to do this year? I know there's been people asking for a long time on these different roadways.
I don't know about absolutely necessary. There are improvements for the areas. it was, I'm not one to be able to say if it's absolute. There are improvements to the areas. I think they would make it.
I know,
that they're there, the question is, does the council want to spend money for them or not?
well, I guess from, my question has to do with, you know, what's been the commitment, where are we today on these projects?
So we've had some plans drawn up. This was driven. There was an accident in the area a while back where a child was killed. Since then, I'm not aware of any other major accidents that have happened out there. The PD might know better, but there are improvements. James Dolan does have its issues. West 10th Street does have its issues. But in terms of does it need to get done, I think that, like Councilman Freitas is saying, it's kind of your call.
I think we'll answer that question when we have that $2 million.
Well,
I-
those two sources of funding are Measure J and gas tax, just so you know. So it wouldn't be returning money to the general fund. What it would be is freeing up money for another project. Maybe if you wanted to put it to streetlights, for example, in the gas tax fund, depending on what portion of the traffic calming. I think the majority of the traffic calming might be in the Measure J fund, actually.
I think so too.
In terms of, I just wanted to be clear, that's not going to help the 10 million.
It's shifty. Using some of those gas tax credit Measure J money, where we have general fund money, they still would be appropriate to be spent.
So those are our new projects. And that's kind of all I have for you, but I'm more than happy. I would love, I know there's some up there, and I would love to answer some questions. This is my favorite time of the year, actually my favorite night of the year. So I would be more than happy to answer any questions you guys might have.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna go back kind of through the more specific list. So on 2-4 of the CIP itself, Roman numeral 2-4, it shows dispatch communication center improvements at $1.3 million.
Yes, sir.
It shows that as unfunded. So to the extent that it's in this year's or next year's budget, is the police department expecting this to be constructed, or, I mean, is this a have to have this expansion next year?
So my understanding is that the PD is looking at a number of possibilities. They understand that their dispatch area is quite small and quite limited. I'm not sure exactly to what extent we've looked at moving that off-site or what it would take, but it isn't an easy fix.
Okay. I guess the reason I'm asking is, as we're looking through the projects that are proposed for next year that say unfunded, if like, I didn't see the dispatch center in the list of new projects, for example. And so that's why I'm just wondering is that something that PD is expecting us to find funding for, to build, or?
Can I just hold? We're on Roman numeral 2-4. I assume it's project number 8022?
Correct.
I think she's with us now.
No, it is not. It is not funded.
And it's not absolutely necessary to build this next year?
No, it's not.
Okay. The property and evidence storage building, I think we had talked about the fact that the return on that investment's pretty fast because of how much it's costing us for storage. Currently, that's the same page, 2-4, project 8023. That was $300,000. Is that something you would recommend that it shows as unfunded. So I guess the question is that something we would want to fund?
Yes, that would, I would have to relook at the numbers. That would pay for itself at the end of year 2. We are paying right now for storage between our Connex boxes, safe storage in Hayward.
Okay, we're done.
Almost $60,000 a year just to store our evidence. And when we have to check it out for court, we have to drive all the way to Hayward to get it and bring it all the way back here. Check it all the way back in at Hayward when it's done. If we had on-site storage, we would eliminate the $60,000 that we're paying for storage now every year. So I think the total cost of that building was just under $300,000. The cost is going up. When we first got the estimate for the building, it was $120,000. That was early in 2020, late 2023, so the cost is going to keep going up. But if we had on-site storage, we would eliminate $60,000 from our budget. Every year, the building would pay for itself in 2 or 3 years, and we would be able to, the city would be able to recoup that cost, and we could get rid of the temporary storage that we have behind the police department right now.
Is there a place further away we could put our storage, do you think? or is
I think there's
Fremont
plenty
about
of
as far as
places
you can-
farther away.
Okay.
We're just, actually, our property and evidence section came up with this design about 2 years ago, and we've been trying to find ways to fund it and make it happen, because we see the cost savings benefit that it presents to the city. When we first brought it forward, the cost savings in the first year, and at the end of the second year, would have paid for itself already.
So then I look at the development impact fees and it shows about $12 million in PD facility. Is that something we could use development impact
Yeah,
fees
I don't
for?
think we have $12 million in development impact fees for PD, but we'll have to look at the DIF study, and if there's a nexus that we can pay for all or part of it, because a lot of the projects that are funded with DIF, it can only pay like a percentage of it. I'm not sure with all what's listed in that study, but that is, we're actually, the department heads are meeting next week to go over those funds and what it can be used on. So we'll definitely, explore if it can be used on any portion of these projects.
And then will you come back to us when we do, come back with, because these numbers are, if we're gonna do it and it's not listed as a general fund contribution, we just need to know what the total number is.
And just if I can add, Mayor, if we had an on-site storage building, I'm sure you've all been up to the second floor of the police department on the investigation side of the house. There's archived evidence up there that's taking up probably equal to the amount of space that the detectives are occupying. So if we were able to move all that stuff out, we have another budgeted money for office build-out for up there. We can't do it until we get that stuff until we get that storage unit cleared out. But that would enable us to expand the workspace upstairs so we could house more detectives up there.
Yeah, so I would just recommend we put this in this year's CIP to get going on that right away as a project. Council. Oh.
Just for confirmation, we were talking about the external building and the interior modifications to the property and evidence, correct?
Yeah, it's project 8023.
Okay.
is
Yeah,
what
and once we, like I said, we actually are the meeting regarding the development impact fees next week. And so if we determine that any or a portion of that can be funded, we'll definitely report that to council so that we can, or if we find that it can't be used based on the guidelines of that particular fund, we'll also report that out to council as well to see, what you want to consider for funding.
Okay. And then on page Roman numeral 2-6, project 7984, community park synthetic turf replacement. It shows $2.2 million for next year. Page 2, it's project number 7984. Community park synthetic turf. So you're showing next year 2.2 million, it's unfunded. First question is, aren't there some fees that have been collected towards the cost of that project?
So there's not fees specifically, but recreation takes a portion of the turf field rental revenue, and they set it aside towards turf field replacement. And, we only have a few $100,000 collected since that time, so it's nowhere near what we need for the turf replacement.
So when does that project, I know it has a certain life expectancy, and I imagine we're probably at or past it. So
We're probably past it, but our recreation department does a real good job of maintaining those fields.
How
So we're
old-
getting a lot of use out of the
How old
turf.
is the turf? 13? Oh, then it's past due.
Yeah, 2013, so we just had a study done, and we're in a 2-year agreement to do more maintenance from the people who installed it. So we have 2027 is the expectancy to replace it.
So can we move that line item out another year or two and to the place, and then figure out how we're gonna pay for that, right?
Yeah, currently it's unfunded, so it can be moved down the road. But we did want to show it as a need because it will be coming up.
Okay.
And you said the turf's been, is it 13 years? Is that what you said?
It was done in 2013.
It was 2013?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just, when we did the stadium at Antioch High School, I know they generally look at anywhere from 8 to 12
10,
years.
yeah.
That's kind of what they look at. So, yeah, it is probably getting to its replacement, sooner than later, probably. But in this case, maybe it's 2 years out.
Right.
Yeah, so we just had the study done this year, and with some repairs and infield and the way that we are taking care of the fields, we have expanded the life expectancy. So we have, our staff has been doing a good job, and when they came out and surveyed the field, they were like, it's past its peak, but you guys have done a good job to maintain it. So.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. Appreciate that. On the same page, 2-6, Roman numeral 2-6, 8008, the last project at the bottom, Rivertown Community Space. So I'm presuming that's the BD Lumberyard property.
Yes, sir.
So we're showing that as a $4.7 million project, and it says park and lieu fund, so we're assuming that's going to be a park? Has that been determined by council in the past?
There has been a number of study sessions regarding that facility as use as a park. That was the direction that staff last got. Worked with Recreation Department to go over a lot of things, and that's where we're at, is that the idea was that it was going to be a park.
So,
I think we need to revisit that. I don't want it to be a park.
Okay.
so
I'm absolutely opposed to having a park there. I think that is underutilization of that property. It could be so much more. For 20 years, I have voiced that concern with the people in the downtown, with the Rivertown Preservation Society, so on and so forth. I'm opposed to a park on the site.
So I guess to the extent that we have past council, we have current council that may have different ideas, we probably need to revisit that so that we can decide if we want to list, because if you look at this CIP, apart from not knowing anything about the property, it looks like we're putting a park there for $4.7 million.
And that
Or proposing to put a park there.
we can work with the city manager and bring something and see what
Yeah, I
the
can bring
current
this as
desire
a
is.
discussion item. I believe there was a lot of community outreach and a report done, but I do understand what you're saying in terms of the outcomes. And do you want to talk about it?
We'll have Brad give us the background on this.
Yes, the previous council authorized funding to begin exploration of developing that site into a park. We had actually retained a landscape architect to begin work on that. We held a couple of community meetings, and there have been some concepts that have been developed. So the funding that is shown is remaining for us to continue to develop, though. That project's been on pause, but that's what that's there for. So yes, the previous council did give us direction. We have done some work to develop that into a park.
So have we spent $223,000 to date, or is that what's left?
That's what's remaining.
So we have $223,000 remaining.
And if you look
Yes.
historically, the city has done many studies down here from the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, where there's other uses for that particular property. So it's just not the prior council. Lots of councils have trying to end. And so it needs to be revisited.
Okay. So just something we'll be putting, probably not before the budget's adopted, but
I doubt it.
we'll do that. And then also we have on the next page, Roman numeral 2-7, we have playground replacement program at $1 million a year for the next, it just runs out, but it's unfunded. So to the extent that I'm not sure what we're funding going forward next year, if we absolutely have a playground that needs to be replaced, or if we don't.
So we had an assessment done, and there's about 12 playgrounds that were identified as in need of replacement as soon as possible. So we wanted to make council aware of that need.
What's the average cost per playground, would you say, to?
About $500,000.
Okay, so this would do two.
2 a year over the
So it takes
next 5
6
years.
years to knock out the 12 that have been identified at $1
Yeah.
million a year.
That's correct. And that's adding a little bit of extra funds in case we got to do some of the curb gutter work and stuff. The playground itself wouldn't cost the 500, but a little extra there, contingency, in case we have to do some of the curb and gutter around the pour-in place.
So to the council, I guess we just need to establish the liability we're facing and what, you know, what,
It is a liability issue, right? I mean,
Exactly.
there's also ADA issues that we've talked about, and prior councils have embraced, I'm not sure the
All-
terminology, but all
All
ability, you know, and that has, you know, been kind of the direction we're going, so, yeah, I mean, it is a liability question.
so we have to just come up with how much we're going to invest or how
I
many
agree.
playgrounds and have a plan on how we want to address that.
The money for those improvements come from, oh, it's completely unfunded.
Yeah.
All right.
So, page, page 2-8, under the pavement surface treatment projects, we're showing over the next 5 years to do $5 million worth of projects. Is there any way, because I noticed our PCI, our pavement condition index, has gone from a 68 3 or 4 years ago, it's down to a 64 now, or 63. So we're losing ground on that, and we're spending a lot of money on L Street and a lot of other, you know, traffic calming and just all kinds of different projects that are not rehabilitating our pavement, and we're gonna lose it even further. So is there a way, I mean, I guess the question is, are we maxing out our available money to try to do all these different things?
We're trying to, and if there is a focus, we can always focus more towards the roadway rehabilitation. The current plan is 1 year, we're doing the accessibility improvements, the curb cuts that are necessary for the work, and doing the preparations. The next year, there'll be a surface treatment for that roadway. So it's like every other year. So you'll see the pavement plug project that we're doing right now is followed up by the surface treatment project next year. To try to expand that as best we can, of course. Whatever money that we do have, we build a project to the funds that are available. We do try to keep them in an area, like this current area is going to be around Mount Hamilton and around the Jacobson area, just in general, that's where those rehabs are going to be. And then as they move forward with our plan, we're able to do areas, and this is how we choose to do it. We cannot, rebuilding roads is just not something that's feasible anymore. Doing major reconstruction, also you start getting into some other requirements for us. But the plan is right now to try to extend the funds as best we can to do the prep on the road work, to do the concrete work that's necessary to do the road work, and then do the surface treatment to finalize everything.
Yeah, and just, I noticed in your report, you noted that we have a $302 million backlog in streets, which grows every year, and that's to get us to an 81 to 82 PCI as opposed to the 64 we're currently at. So we just have a major street problem, deferred maintenance issue, and I just think we need to keep it on the radar.
And we can continue to look at it. We'll try to do the best we can. You see what the budget looks like right now. If there's a desire to move some additional roadway funding into that roadway rehabilitation, like you said, there's plenty of streets that could use the work.
Okay, thank you. On page 2-9, project 8009, Antioch School Pedestrian Safety Improvements, it shows $50,000 per year for that project. Are we doing improvements every year to the tune of $50,000?
We're trying to. Basically, this goes with our, typically there's a TDA grant that comes out every year. This TDA grant is useful for these school zones. That typically runs around $50,000 to $100,000 that we can try to get. We actually are utilizing one. It's not shown on this, but there is a TDA grant available for us right now that we're looking to utilize. But that would be the supplement. You end up with $50,000 worth of city money, and then somewhere between 50 to 100 of grant money to do these improvements, which typically consists of some sort of traffic calming kind of around the area. You're looking typically refreshing striping, possibly crosswalks, possibly adding flashing crosswalks or other sort of traffic calming to try to make it better for pedestrians and kids basically in the area.
And in the 7958, the overhead undergrounding,
Yeah.
show the Rule 28 money at $1 million in a couple years. You can't really do much of a project for $1 million, right?
No, sir.
So, I mean, is that something where we want to kick it down the road till we have more money, or just, you know, look at trying to borrow money against it, or I don't know what?
So currently, the thought is it's kind of being kicked down the road just a little bit. If something came up and we wanted to add something to it, that would be great. The initial thought was to use it on L Street with that project, but again, the $1 million isn't going very far, and it made the cost of the project go up quite a bit if you're trying to do all the undergrounding. So my recommendation is to keep it off a little bit, but it's there. If something came up, we know that we have the money available if we had a good project or a good location. But $1 million is a rather small underground area.
Okay, I'm also, go ahead.
Yeah, on that point, you know, let's face it, when people come into town on A Street and 18th, it looks like we go back into the 1940s. You know, we have a bell shape on the road. We have still wood, what do you call telephone poles and things of that sort. And I know from prior discussions, the cost of undergrounding is very expensive, particularly on 18th Street, A Street. But, you know, there are other ways of financing it, and one of those ways is debt financing. So if there is some money that is generated, we could actually go out to the market, have sell bonds, improve, and bring ourselves into the 21st century with, you know, a bond debt that might be payable 10, 15, 20 years. We rarely ever view that. It's mostly pay as you go, but there are other funding opportunities that are available to jurisdictions, and I think that's something that we really should take a look at as a way of resolving some of these problems, like the $302 million for just bringing our roads up to a good condition. You know, getting rid of, you know, 1950 technology with telephone poles and wires and things of that sort. So I would suggest with Townsend, with, you know, Director of Finance, with financial advisors, that we need to look at other ways of financing some of the capital needs, because we will never have enough money pay as you go to resolve some of these issues. The other, and the mayor is on CCTA, and they're talking about reauthorization of half-cent sales tax with regards to transportation. The last time we fought for that, we argued there should be return to source money, Measure J money, you know, and that worked, and it's been successful. And I would hope that as we move forward, that city engineers, because you, I assume, still get together on a monthly basis, city engineers countywide, and have some discussions about return to source funding. Our situation's worse than it was, you know, when we passed the half-cent sales tax, 15 years ago or whatever it was. But we often are stuck on these issues because the numbers are so large, but we rarely, if ever, talk about different type of fundraising or financing that is available to local government. So I would just suggest to the city manager and director of finance that those are some areas that we need to look at, and I think Townsend could probably help us with that. And so when Councilmember Wilson and Mayor Pro Tem Rocho go back, you know, it's you know, sometimes asking for us to be able to get, you know, debt financing at 3-5% for major projects. And so I'm just suggesting that we have historically been very narrow with regards to public financing of infrastructure. So.
I just want to piggyback on that. It feels like we don't take advantage of mitigation fees. I think there's a lot of time. We have something coming up. Contra Costa Water District is working on undergrounding the canal. They've already started, and so when they get to our part of the city, and they get to Antioch, it's going to cause a lot of inconvenience. So I think there's opportunity around mitigation fees. I don't know if we've been asking for them in the past. So I just also wanted to add that to Councilmember Freitas's ask on funding that we can ask for. I think, again, we're leaving money on the table.
All right, just a couple more. So on the Northeast annexation infrastructure, so it shows we have a couple $1 million that's through those property tax increment we get, correct, that in 2 years out, and it shows another $1.5 million unfunded the year after. What are we looking at there with that money?
So first things first, St. Clair and Trembeth have not had any work done on them when we did the initial work on the northeast annexation. Water and sewer lines will be going down on those streets, hopefully within the next year or so. There's a lot of improvements in the area. Storm drainage hasn't been touched out there. You have a drainage pond, and that's basically it left over from the county. So there needs to be drainage improvements. In theory, there should be curb, gutter, sidewalk, lighting, everything else that a city street would have. What you're seeing in there isn't adequate funding for everything, but I also haven't put pen to paper about the entire length of everything. The work that we've been able to do in the area has been pretty successful. The water lines that we've got in the area, people have tied into. Sewer line also, as well as connecting that sewer line down Wilbur to the PG&E plant. So we have infrastructure in the ground if anybody does want to tie into it along Wilbur.
So I guess it would be nice to see a little bit of a plan on what the approach is, what's the highest priority, so we can see if we do need to supplement the funding to provide, the infrastructure out there.
Sure.
To provide to those places that have septic and wells that need to get off of them, or.
The only area, like I said, it's the Trembeth and St. Clair. Those two roads are the only roads within that annexation area that did not get a water line and sewer line to tie into.
Okay.
Maybe because some of the property owners did not want that.
I believe there was some other property owners that didn't want this. In this case, the work that we did went down Vieira and hit the side streets. It just didn't go over to those areas. I've had conversation with them. They're working with the county. We've worked with the county to provide them solid irrigation water that they can utilize. But the idea is still to bring amenities to the area.
All right, and then my last question is Slatton Ranch Road. So I know we're collecting fees and have been for years from developers, and there's supposed to be a project that's going to extend the road from Penny's up and connect to Laurel. That's not in the CIP at all. What's the plans for that?
So it's one of the projects that's ECRFA funded, and that's what we're looking at. It's actually in two phases within ECRFA. It's Wildflower or Wild Horse to Lone Tree Way, and then Wildflower to Hillcrest. The part that makes the most sense, if we're going to do anything, would just be the Wild Horse to Lone Tree Way. It would open up that corridor for us to utilize it. There is ECRFA money available to do that. It's something that we're looking at to see. Slatton Ranch is a better usage of funds than Wilbur. Wilbur's they're guesstimating about $31 million to widen Wilbur, and it's in the mid-20s, I believe, to do the work on Slatton Ranch. So the idea is, at least currently, Wild Horse to Wicklow. I think that's where it's at, and that would then open up the area for at least some building. That's where we are with it. If there isn't anything planned right now, it's currently discussions.
Yes.
When the decision was made to bring EBAR to East County, the Slanton Ranch extension became a very important part of the discussion, so that East County, particularly Oakley and Brentwood, would have access to the BART station. I'm just curious, have there been any continuing discussions with the cities of Oakley and Brentwood? Because that was, frankly, part of the reason why they supported it, because of the circulation issue that they would be able to use and extended Slatton Ranch Road to get to the E-BART station.
I haven't heard anything from either one of those cities. We did talk with a company, I believe it was named Glideway, that was looking to have some sort of transportation aspect that would come from BART station along the same alignment possibly as Slatton Ranch and headed out towards, I believe, the streets of Brentwood. The corridor gets very narrow underneath 160. It's just the way that it is to try to fish the thing, to fish the road through there. Doesn't make it impossible, but the work that BART's done and their maintenance over there, their maintenance facility, it will be tight. I do understand what you're talking about, trying to close that up, but like I say, it's very tight through there and rather expensive.
The other issue deals with the flood control district and the drainage channels, that you have there. You also have you have Los Vaqueros Reservoir transmission lines and things of that sort. It is a very difficult piece of property, but that was part of the commitment to some of the East County jurisdictions that Slanton Ranch Road would be connected.
And those residential units are paying $10,000+ per lot. So there's I think a fair amount of money we have collected, which could help jumpstart an ECRFA project out there, at least to connect pennies up to Wild Horse.
And that would be desirable.
In ECRFA is East County Fee and Financing Authority, which collects money, for capital transportation projects.
That's good to know. I have to have some conversations with them tomorrow, and I'll be focusing on that particular roadway.
All right. That's all the questions I have. Any other questions? Any public comments on this item?
Melissa Case.
The real estate community and potential sellers may hate me for this, but I don't know if we've ever considered doing something like Oakley does. They do a sewer lateral requirement on a transfer of a home. So when you gotta sell a home, you gotta have the city, as long as the home is 20 years or older, you have to have the city come out. Or actually, the seller has to provide a sewer lateral visual and then submit it to the city. And then the city says you need to fix it, or they give you a certificate of compliance. Oakland does it. Lots of people do it. Oakland, they also do sidewalk ordinance and stuff like that. So it might be a way to help our infrastructure and stuff. So it might be a consideration. And then I just want to say, last budget meeting, I felt like I was gaslighted a little bit. So I did some deep dives into some dates about our fiscal unresponsibility, I guess. So in June 2019, Councilmember Joy Motz, she actually raised red flags about a looming $12 million deficit. And then I already shared this with Dawn, but April 28th, 2020, Dawn warned the city council against dipping into stabilization funds, and she predicted the year and the dollar amount, 2025, $35 million deficit. It's like she has a crystal ball, or she's that good. March 2021, we had a fully staffed police department. April 26th, Lauren Posada, our treasurer, thanked the council, but cautioned that priorities were to shift. Upfront conversation about fiscal impacts and funding were essential. February 24th, 2023, Dawn again sounded the alarm. Over $9 million had already been transferred to cover our deficits from the stabilization funds. January 2024, Posada again reiterated the warnings of our deficit. In May 2024, city staff made it crystal clear that the council had a spending problem, yet some people on council still voted in favor of part-time staffing, discretionary slush funds, and some non-essential projects. So I just want to say, moving forward, because that's what we're doing, I appreciate everyone's full transparency and hard work into this budget. It's been really eye-opening, and I don't think we should blame anybody, especially our current mayor, because he's working so hard about getting us fiscally responsible. So I want to thank you for that too. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yes, one more.
Thank you. Is there a detailed report that you got to go along with this report as well? Like, oh, I don't know, you can't answer me directly, but that is my first question. Because if there is, I'd like to know if I can have it, if there's more detail, like a more of a further breakdown. And then also, I didn't know if I could ask a direct question as well to staff, if they could answer it today or not. I could also send an email. I know we're here to cut, and I understand that. I was just wondering, when we talk about like park rebuilding and beautification and essentials in the park, I think the three of you will know what I'm going to say next, because every time I see you, I ask it. I'm just wondering where in this report will it talk about like keeping money for keeping the park bathrooms clean and open on a daily basis, if it's in there? And then also, if any money was going to be moved around, I would really hope that we could have open bathrooms, especially in our downtown park. I've mentioned it before, and I think if we're gonna have a bathroom open at the marina, that's great, but there's a lot of people who wanna be able to go there, and then there's only like a porta potty that says that you can't use it and only the children can use it. And I've been told by, I'm guessing someone in this room, I don't remember his name, that it was because, that you wouldn't open the downtown park because somebody had lit fire to it. And that was going to be reopened. So I'm wondering if that's going to happen, if that's the real reason. Then there was another reason that that somebody was using it for her services, quote, that's what I was told. And so I'm just kind of wondering if we could revisit having a bathroom. We've also talked about having a water fountain and a place to wash your hands, like separately. Because if people who have nowhere to go have to go on themselves, which I know they do because I have a friend who's houseless who's probably just become accustomed to not having a place to go. Maybe they could at least have a fountain for water in this heat and or a place to wash their hands. So I've talked about creating a GoFundMe for this kind of thing. I don't even know if that's money that could go even if that were to happen, if that's money that could go directly to something like that, because it's a pretty serious thing just imagine having to go to the bathroom and what it would be like when you have not only nowhere to go, but you decide that you just have to go in your pants. Yeah. So thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
We don't have any other public comment.
All right, any other questions or comments from council?
Mr. Mayor, I just want to make sure, I'm looking at my calendar, the council is going to be meeting every Tuesday in the month of June, is that correct? I have June 3rd at 4 o'clock, June 10th at 7. I have June 17th at 6 o'clock, and June 24th, regular council. All right, so those are the holds. Yes. Okay.
June 3rd is an actual. We'll be bringing back, kind of a compilation from the 20th, what was directed to include, and then from this evening, so that council can weigh in on this final budget model. If we proceed, what other things you might want to incorporate, and then the idea would then to bring back the final draft for adoption on the 24th. The city manager just put the 17th as a placeholder in case there's anything last minute we need to kind of see or revise before we adopt the budget.
So let me make sure. So we're going to get a draft budget on the 3rd?
Yes, for the general fund, incorporating all the direction from the 20th, and then this evening.
And with the challenge for the council to reduce?
No, if that's an acceptable model to adopt for the 1 year for the 26th, to bring back the whole budget document, all the funds, the bound draft, or does this look good, or is there something else you want us to incorporate before we, we're not asking you what are we going to do to get rid of the 10 million. The recommendation is going to be, here's the model based on the direction we've gotten thus far, and we are above the 20%, and so utilizing that model, realizing we're going to be reducing reserves, but then spending fiscal year 26 for those long-term mitigation measures, periodic reporting to city council, and this is what we're going to do now to really tackle the deficit going forward.
So my understanding is that on the June the 3rd, we were going to come with any other ideas or any other recommendations to cut the $10 million deficit down to the extent that the council consensus is that's as far as we can go.
Right. If there's other, like I said, on the 3rd, this is going to be so you can now see, here's everything based on the recommendations from the 20th, and then this evening. This is what it looks like right now. And of course, you're still going to see, for example, the $10 million deficit, because what we're happening tonight is going to happen in fiscal year 25, but it's going to increase the general fund reserve balance, by a couple million from what we've done this evening. But then it's going to be, is there anything else, before we adopt this that you want to include, look at?
Yeah,
And
it's going to be the hard conversation, basically. So yes, we'll bring it back to you to look and see what we could do with this meeting and the last meeting, and then what you need to decide in terms of policy and decisions to cut it down.
Yes.
So are we still talking on the 3rd that we would be moving $5 million from the rate stabilization fund to help balance? Is that included or not included?
That is gonna
it-
be a council decision, because in fiscal year '26, I'm starting to frame the report now, and, my recommendation is going to be not to touch the budget stabilization fund in fiscal year '26, because we are over 30% in unassigned reserves, which is gonna, I think, get a little bit higher after, what we do this evening. And, the budget stabilization fund, you can use reserves to balance the budget, quote unquote. You're using the reserves to balance your budget. And then really look at fiscal year '27 forward, if the council needs to use the 5 million or whatever it is, as mitigation for those future budgets.
So I have a legal question. I thought local jurisdictions were required by law to have a quote-unquote balanced budget.
The balanced budget is the fact that you use reserves.
The $5 million,
No, the general fund reserves.
that we've exhausted the,
Well, so based on even what was provided to you on the 20th, in 25, 26, we're above our 20%. So even though our revenues don't equal our expenditures, you're drawing down, get a little bit close to that 20%. You're using the general fund reserves to quote unquote balance your budget.
okay?
So when you say $10 million, is that plus the 5 million? So it's really a $15 million deficit we're currently sitting on?
So,
Is that true?
no.
So we have a $10 million total deficit in budget fiscal year '26?
I can't remember what the exact, I'm not sure if I have the
Because
report
of-
from the 20th.
I mean, basically, what we have outlined as expenditures and reducing reserves, we still have a 20+% coverage.
Correct.
And we are not using any money out of the rate stabilization fund, but because we have used the reserve fund, we meet all legal requirements.
Correct.
And so, so then the money basically, stays in the rate stabilization fund, which we'll have to attack in fiscal year '27.
Yes.
So can you please identify as a number, the money that we have identified to not spend in the next fiscal year, so it doesn't just get rolled into the general fund? So you can show us it was, say, $2 million tonight or whatever. Can you show that as a separate number?
Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely be laying that out in the report so that you can see, right.
It would just be nice to see systematically how we've been approaching this budget deficit, so this would be the next step
Yes.
in that exercise.
Yes, and
Yeah.
we'll put the models behind as the tabs, and then the full mitigation line items.
So how soon can we see this?
The third.
The third's the meeting. How soon are we gonna get the staff report for
The
that?
second.
The second, the day
Because,
before?
just so, like, it takes,
24 hours
it takes
ahead of
me
time.
a minute.
I know, but we can't just do that. It's like getting the CIP last night at 10 o'clock. And we attended a funeral that lasted 5 hours and then had Tri-Delta. It's very difficult to get.
No, we understand. It's just that we wouldn't be able to even have the numbers crunched until the 30th, which is Friday. So we could send it to you maybe over the weekend or Sunday.
Well,
but
basically, I'd be having to work 24 hours with no
It's
sleep to
not-
get the report. It takes a
it's-
lot
And
to
your
pull
It's
point
in
is-
4
together.
days, so
So-
we
What's your
we
point,
just
Don?
can't.
And Friday's actually my day off,
Sure.
but I am working because, I have to
Okay,
get this and
all
other
right.
stuff
And
done, so.
We just want to make sure that you guys know that's in like 4 days, so we just, it's gonna be
No,
Thursday.
that's the
so.
reason I was asking, because we just need as much.
That's initially why we were asking for the meeting on
The
Thursday
third.
instead of Tuesday,
Yeah, we-
so, but, not all council
Weren't available
wasn't
on the
available because we were trying to give a little bit more time, but, unfortunately it didn't work out
But
that way, so.
building off of what the mayor has indicated, I'm assuming when the report comes, you're going to indicate, like you have in the past, then fiscal year '26, we have already cut $10 million, I don't know what it is, $10 million, and as well as '27, right? right? We've already taken action for both fiscal years, even though this is a one-year budget.
Right, so, you know, as has
what
been
you're
in the
asking.
reports, we have the table of the mitigation measures that have been taken in each year, so that's gonna be included on there. Plus, you know, there's additional from what would happen on the 20th, and then you know, we'll include in the report what happened for
Yeah, I
tonight.
think the mayor is trying to say, look, you know, these are the actions that this city council is taking to get fiscally solvent. And frankly, I would hope in the report you also, because your statement on June 11th, you know, of 2024 was what motivated me to actually run for office because of the shortfall fiscally. And I hope that you will be as blunt as you were then, saying, you know, we're not out of the woods. You know,
Absolutely, and I am going to be providing projections, so you'll have a total of 5 years through fiscal year '29, and I'm gonna show one projection, you know, just what we know now, and then I'm gonna have a second projection showing home key, as council authorized, you know, 1.2 million each year in home key, so that's gonna further add to the deficit. So I'm gonna show, here's how it is with how everything stands, and here's if we are awarded home key and proceed with that, so that you can see the projections with both of those figures. And it's not gonna look pretty, I'm gonna guarantee you that, but,
No,
so.
So
there's no surprise there.
Councilmember Wilson mentioned she cannot make 4 o'clock on the 3rd. What time can you make on the 3rd?
It,
Oh, you can't make it on the 3rd at all? Okay.
it wasn't gonna start at 4, it was gonna,
Fifth was the problem, what was the problem with the fifth?
Yeah, I'm out of town on the 5th too.
Can we meet on the 4th?
Wednesday?
It gives it another day.
We just have to look and see if there's another,
I know there was, when we
meetings
were
every
talking
day,
with the
so-
That's
clerk's office,
Planning
there was,
Commission, I think.
there was, we're trying to find days where there aren't other meetings.
I don't think there's anything on the fourth on my calendar.
Well, I'm talking about for other commissions and
Yeah, we have
committees.
CDBG in the morning
Yes,
from 9:30 to.
there's other,
Yeah, I think Planning Commission meets the first Wednesday, 1st and 3rd.
yeah, I just,
I have the clerk's calendar pulled up if you need help.
we can. I'm fine with it. I'm fine with it. We have the 9th available. That Monday,
Is that,
the 9th.
yeah, I'm available on the 9th, but does that give the finance director enough time to be able to pull?
none of these dates give me enough time, so I'm gonna be killing myself to get, but.
Right, well, I'm just saying the
It's
3rd,
better than the 3rd, but yes.
the difference between the 3rd and the 9th is,
Almost a week.
right, but then that just means,
Really, I mean, I will get the report done by the 3rd, it's just the fact that you're wanting it sooner, and I physically just cannot provide it before the 2nd. So,
all right, so we'll just,
So what day are we meeting?
let's meet on the 3rd at, I have it 5 o'clock on my calendar, but I don't know what,
yeah, we didn't set it for 4, it was
No, I
like
think
5 or 5.
we were holding the date.
I think city manager told us to hold it.
It's 5:30.
so,
But we have Oversight Commission on Monday, the 2nd, this on the 3rd, Planning Commission on the 4th, Mayor's Conference on the 5th. So usually there's meetings every night. We could do a different location on the 4th.
I thought we were talking about the 3rd. We're not.
Yeah, so I'm just giving you other options.
Councilmember
Because
Wilson
Councilmember
can't,
Wilson
she
wasn't
can't,
available on
she
the
can't make it
3rd,
on the
yeah.
4th.
don't wanna hold up something.
But we all can meet on the 4th at 7:30?
You're available at 7:30?
At- Can we maybe earlier, 5:36? Oh, okay.
I can't get, the earliest I'm able to get here is 7:30.
Oh, okay.
I can do the 4th at 7:30,
I can do the 4th at 7:30.
So can I.
because I'd love to have you here.
Yeah, I think it's the whole council.
Yeah. So why don't we do Wednesday, and now we have to find a location, because that's Planning Commission's meeting here.
Maybe
And
the
it's also
planning commission
late.
needs to find a location.
It's pretty late for staff.
What's that?
It's late for staff because we have a full day. So CDBG at 9 and coming straight to 7:30, it's a lot for our team.
Or we keep the 2nd.
Well, we can't.
Or-
We can hit it by the 2nd.
Or the third, keep the third, you mean?
Well, then we go back to the ninth, Monday the ninth. Can we do Monday the ninth? I think, I mean, we already have the third, but you can't be here.
Just do, go ahead and do the third. I don't, like I said, I don't want to hold up the process. But the fourth I can do, I wouldn't be able to get here till 7:30.
Let's do the third at 5:30, Tuesday the third at 5:30.
Tuesday, the third, that's what I had on here already.
Is that okay, Dawn?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, you say yes to everything, so I can ask if we do it tomorrow and say yes.
Well, if there's another alternative, if Ms. Merchant can get us the material, let's say by the fourth, and we meet on the ninth, so it'll give us enough time to read the document.
She's saying yes, but
And
The ninth is
problem
better.
If you give us,
the ninth.
we're meeting on the third, and you've given it, give it to us, you know, that evening. I mean, there are other meetings we also have.
Does the ninth work for you longer term?
We'll make it work, whatever, you know, the ninth will give me like another day to prepare the report and make sure it's all buttoned up and then give you time to prepare it in advance, but just realizing like, you know, I personally don't want like 5 meetings after to, you know, 'cause otherwise we're not gonna get it adopted.
No, I think we need to hopefully come with clear direction on, that's what I'm expecting for us to tell you what we want to do as a consensus of the council moving forward, so you can.
Is Friday off the table, the 6th?
Yeah, I'm not in town on Friday the 6th.
Let's stick with the dates she's already.
Well, it looks like it's either the 3rd or the 9th. is what it says.
If you can do the 9th, Dawn, let's do the 9th.
Yeah,
If we can get everybody here.
I can do the ninth, and then,
Okay, but that's with the understanding that when you finish the report, we'll get it like on the third or fourth?
yes. I can make a commitment to get it to you by the 4th.
Okay. What time on the ninth?
Can we do 5 o'clock?
Can we say 5:30?
Yeah, 5:30 is fine. I mean, I want to start as early as possible, so if it's a 3-hour meeting, we can, I'm hoping it
No,
isn't.
I get it. 5:30 on Monday the ninth?
Yes. And then in, Bessie and I are strategizing the report thing, so
Sorry,
it'll
I
be,
just don't want her to be unrealistic, so can you live with getting it on the 5th or the 6th, which you have the weekend for?
well, I'd say the 5th, because then that gives Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
Sure.
I will shoot for earlier, but it's a lot to pull together, so.
I think the 4th's fine.
It sounds like the
fifth.
9th works better for you, Dawn, instead of the 3rd, but it sounds like you were going to be trying to jam this thing together, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
this works better
the
for you.
report.
Yes, and then, like I said, I just, you know, want to hope that we can kind of really finalize and button it up, just because if this is going to council on the 24th, agenda Thursday, when all this is due, is actually a city holiday, so that kind of puts a pushback on all staff getting items to the clerk's office and out to council on time, so that kind of shortens everybody's time frame.
Oh, that's on Juneteenth, okay.
Yes, and everybody's staff reports is a big lift, but putting the, you know, 200-page budget document
Right,
together is a
right.
really big lift.
So do you want to do the 9th? Does that allow this to work? I mean, I don't want us to put on the 9th and then have you, you know, not be able to get the thing done by the 24th.
I just want to, like I said, it's just, you know, council's commitment to getting it buttoned up so that there's not, you know, we're trying to jam in a meeting the next day to do something and, you know.
Well, I can commit to buttoning up my comments, so.
I just wanted
So
to,
where are we?
We're on the,
What is the best alternative?
Pick a day.
the 9th at 5:30.
I already sent the
Well, she just
invitation,
let-
so.
There it is.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And the 4th didn't work for some
Well, do you
reason.
have another suggestion? If you don't like the ninth, what day do
It's
you like?
planning commission.
You have to resolve it. What's the best alternative?
There's no issue here. It's already sent for the 9th.
We can make it work on the 9th, it's just a matter of what works, because whatever we come up with, we'll stick with.
Yeah.
I think we're good.
It's fluid right now, but let's lock it in before we leave.
She already sent it, it's locked in.
So you're
Yeah.
good, on the ninth,
Yes.
5:30?
Yes.
Okay.
And then just as for whatever ends up being the final adopted, just so everybody, the budget is a fluid document. You could go to the meeting in July and change something, so the main thing is that we have to have a budget adopted so that we can continue to operate after July 1st. We cannot operate without an adopted budget.
Trust me, after the last 6 months, when we adopt the budget, it's adopted. I don't want to come back in July and August and keep on dealing with it. It's the budget.
So we have to point to adjourn.
All right, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Is there a second?
Yeah, second.
All right, motion is second. Please cast your votes.
My microphone literally won't go off.
I don't see the screen. Oh, there we go. I hit the screen. and it
Motion
came
to adjourn at 9:35 PM passes 4-0.
Meeting adjourned.
up. Okay. So we don't.